I'd like to welcome everybody to a joint meeting between, well, for the beginning anyways, joint meeting between the Planning Board and the Selectmen, calling the Selectmen to order. I'm going to begin quickly with the announcements, and then we'll move right along. The Friends of the Grafton Public Library present container gardening with guest speaker Pam Hill, a master gardener. The event will be held on Saturday, April 7th, 2018 at the Community Barn, located on Wheeler Road in North Grafton. Please see the news and announcement for this event on our webpage for more details. Volunteers are needed for the annual Earth Day River Cleanup sponsored by the Blackstone River Watershed Association. It's held on Saturday, April 14th from 1 to 3. The BRWA will be partnering up with the Volunteers in Parks program of the Blackstone Heritage Board. Make a difference by volunteering just a few hours of your time to clean up trash and various debris that pollute our waterways along rivers, streams, ponds, wetlands, and shorelines. The community meeting for the Grafton Upton Railroad will be held tomorrow night at the auditorium at the Grafton High School. Begins at 7 p.m. Discuss questions submitted pertaining to the liquid petroleum facility. All right, you guys in order? All right.
Call planning board to order.
Okay, so this evening we have the housing production plan presentation, and we need to vote on it. Just quick segue into it is Joe, and then Karen's here to actually give the presentation. Joe, if you want to.
Sure. The Housing Trust and Assistant Planner Rachel Benson have been working together with Karen on this this update for the housing production plan. Our last plan from 2013 is expiring in July, and it's very important for us to maintain no gaps as far as being covered by a plan, so that we can, one, make sure that we continue to have guidance as far as producing affordable housing in town, but then second, if we do happen to have projects approved and units created, then we're able to become a housing certified community with a approved housing production plan. That's why this plan is very important. And the town has done a lot of stuff over the last number of years, and you'll see through Karen's material, there's a lot of interesting things that in reviewing this, comparing this plan against the 2013 that have changed. Some things that have gotten a little bit more drastic as far as the affordability gap within town, but then also I think some real hope on the future for being able to actually meet and exceed our 10% with some of the recent projects we've been undertaking. So with that, if Karen could get on.
Before I start, I want to just thank you all for convening jointly for this presentation. Got to say, it cuts some time down for me, and it's great to have that kind of everybody together. So when there's discussion, it'll be beneficial to both groups. The housing production plan is a pretty detailed, comprehensive document. So I have really tried to come up with the highlights of the plan, the key takeaways. And we'll go through those during this presentation, so there'll be hopefully enough time for people to share their comments and any issues. First slide. Just thought we'd go over some key benefits or reasons for doing a housing production plan. First was to update the prior production plans that were completed in 2006 and 2013. Each of them have a 5-year term, so the term on the current plan is the end of July, and as Joe said, we're trying to really make sure there's little or no gap between the two, this proposed plan and the current one. Also obtain updated information on demographic, economic, and housing characteristics and trends that really provide the context for identifying needs in the plan. To better understand the current housing market dynamic, identify strategies to address identified needs and goals, and strategically invest local resources. To create a roadmap for getting closer to the state's 10% affordability goal in line with the Housing Trust Housing Action Plan and other local priorities. And to continue to have access to housing production plan safe harbor provisions. And let me explain those briefly. Want to do the next slide? So housing production plans are really a subset of Chapter 40B regulations that were intended to provide greater local control to communities with respect to housing development. The first step is to get a plan that meets all the state requirements under housing production and submit it to the state and get it approved. We've done this twice before here, and we anticipate that this plan will kind of fly through the approval process. The plan has to include a number of key components. One is a very detailed housing needs assessment. Another in key is our housing production goals that are based on 0.5% of your year-round housing stock. And for Grafton, that's now 36 units. If the town meets that 36-unit production goal in any particular year, it gets what's called certified. It's where you hear the safe harbor. It means that for a 12-month period, the town can deny what it considers an inappropriate, unwanted comprehensive permit application without the developer's ability to appeal it. If the town met 1% of its year-round housing stock, it would get a 2-year period where it would be certified. Should mention that the year-round figure comes from the decennial census information. And in 2020, figures when they're released, that 36 level will probably go up to 38 or 39 units because you've got to take growth into consideration. So the next slide is just to give you a sense of kind of the details regarding what affordable housing is, because there are different definitions. A typical definition, one that HUD has used, is that if anyone is spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs, whether it be for rental or home ownership, they're living in unaffordable housing. The common definition is that which is used under Chapter 40B. And a unit has to meet a number of requirements before it be included in what's called the subsidized housing inventory, towards that 10% affordability threshold under 40B, or that 0.5% under annual production goals. We kind of call these the capital A affordable units. The unit has to be subsidized. Either it has to be directly subsidized by a local, state, or federal resource, for example, or it has to be approved through a subsidizing agency. For example, 40B projects, before the application can be submitted to the ZBA for permitting, it has to go through an approval process at one of these subsidizing agencies. The units have to be deed restricted, and we're moving more towards that, if restricted in perpetuity. They have to be affirmatively marketed, such that people who live outside of Grafton, for example, might have the ability to learn or know about affordable housing opportunities as they arise. And they have to be available to households earning at or below 80% of area median income. And that's for the Worcester area. And it was in 2017, just a few days ago, for a household of 3, that amount, that's a maximum amount, was 61,200. The 2018 limits have just been released, and that limit has gone up to 61,800 for a household of 3. The next slide. So what housing is affordable in Grafton? Grafton is inching more than halfway to that 10% level. Of the 7,160 year-round housing units, currently the state lists 365, or 5.1%, in the subsidized housing inventory. And that's an increase of 52 units from the last plan. That should be 2013 plan. There are a number of projects in the pipeline. There are 24 units in the Craftsman Village Ferry Street development. There are 48 units in Prentice Place, 9 in Elm Rock. Those projects on their own will bring the total number of SHI units to 446, or 6.2%. So there's current gap of 350 units to get to the 10% without considering future growth. That goes down to 270 with those developments. I should mention that if a development had already been permitted, it cannot be included it can be included in the subsidized housing inventory, but not the annual housing production goals, because you can only count them when you have a currently approved plan and it's at the earliest of the comp permit or building permit. So, for example, it's going to be important for Prentice Place, for example, to have the comp permit approved either based on before the current plan expires at the end of July, or to get this plan approved as soon as possible and get it into the state and get that plan approved by the state before the comp permit is approved by the ZBA. The other developments, Craftsman Village and Elm Rock, have already been permitted, so those units, once again, comp through SHI, but not production goals.
Is the ZBA aware of that deadline? Is there anything they could do about that, or? Excuse me. Anybody?
I'm not sure where they're at. I know their hearing has been continued, but I'm gonna mark it down so
We definitely should
follow
let
up
them know.
with it later.
Yeah, it'd be great to have some communication on this issue. I should also mention that this plan includes a table that kind of summarizes a pipeline, a potential pipeline of estimated units that, if the strategies in this plan are actually implemented, given the opportunities existing or potential zoning, for example, and other pipeline projects, could get well above that 400 unit gap within, probably unlikely in the next 5 years during the term of this plan, but certainly within the next decade. There's a lot going on in the town with respect to affordable housing. And we try to make that clear in the housing plan. Next slide. There's, once again, a lot of information on kind of the demographic, economic, and housing profile. Try and just kind of give you a sense of the major trends and updated information. The population growth is slowing. Grafton was among the fastest growing communities in the state, as you well know, but development has been slowing down. There was a 19.3% growth rate between 2000 and 2010 to get to a total of about 17,765 residents. That went down to 3.2% between 2010 and 2016 to a total of 18,330 residents. Should say that town records indicate a total population of 18,043, and the difference really is on how the town census versus the federal census counts college students, most of it. Population projections indicate continued growth. The CMRPC suggests that there will be an 18% rate of growth between 2010 and 2030 to 20,970 residents. The State Data Center suggests even higher growth to 22,380 residents during that same period. And MAPC, which also does projections state for all communities in the state, goes even higher to 23,146. The town has been losing younger residents and gaining older ones. This has been a trend over the last several decades. For example, those under 18 comprised almost 29% of the population in 1980, and that's gone down to 24% in 2016. Those in the 25 to 34 age range went during that same period from 17.8% to 12.4%. There's been, on the other end of the range, those 65 and over doubled in number. There's been a big increase in middle-aged residents. Those 45 to 54 grew by 200% compared to a 63% total population growth during that period. And population projections suggest continued trends towards fewer younger residents, more older ones. For example, those 65 and over will grow from 10.8% in 2010 to an estimated 18.1% according to MAPC, but doubling, going to 20.3% according to the State Data Center. The CMRPC is in the process of compiling their numbers, so we don't have a specific projection from them. There has also been increases in smaller households. While family households have grown in number, they have declined as a percentage of all households, and this has also been reflected in decreasing average household sizes. Relatively high incomes. The median, this is based on 2016 census estimates, is $96,277. And in comparison, the median for Worcester County was $67,000. And also, incomes have grown higher than inflationary trends. And just to give you some perspective, in 1999, the median income was $56,000. Certainly, the commuter rail, making it a lot easier for people to flee the high cost in the eastern part of the state and to come to this lovely community has also brought people that are on average earning more. 48% of households earn more than $100,000, and that's from about 20% in 1999. 19% of households earn less than $35,000, from 28% in 1999. 13.2% in 2016 earn less than $25,000. There's still a very vulnerable population living in the community. And 1/3 of all households earned within 80% of area median income and would potentially qualify for government assistance based on income alone. And their poverty is still low in comparison to the county and state, but it increased for families, children, and seniors, and not the kind of trend that we're looking for. Next slide. Just to give you some information on housing trends, the recent slowdown in housing growth. Just to give you an example, 793 units were built between 1990 and 2000. 1,349 were built between 2000 and 2010, and that's gone down to 411 units between 2010 and 2017. So there's still growth, but it's slowing down. And maybe that's not such a bad thing when you talk about town services. High level of owner occupancy, single-family homes in particular, both at 75% in 2010. Just to give you a comparison, for the county, it was 65.3%, and the state was 56.5%. There have been some proportionate losses of rental units from 30.6% of all housing units in 1980 to 27.7% in 2016, but there was still a net gain of 544 such units. Housing costs are approaching pre-recession levels. The highest median single-family house price occurred in 2005 at $422,500. Still high in 2007 at $394,000, but down. And the median single-family house price as of October 2017 was $390,400. And I checked, and as at the end of 2017, it went down a little bit to $385,000. That median single-family house price of $390,400 requires an income of about $108,000 based on a number of assumptions, including not spending more than 30% of your income on housing. The 2016 census suggests a median gross rent of $1,069, but that includes 258 subsidized rentals. So that median is a little bit more affordable than the actual is. And if you check on some market rentals are often much higher. And that $1,069 median rent was not affordable to about 28% of Grafton households, once again based on that 30% affordability threshold. High affordability gaps, looking at assumptions based on 80% financing with a substantial amount of money down, the gap would be $131,900 for households earning at or below 80% area median income. It's a difference between the median single-family house price and what a household earning right at the top of that 80% AMI figure could afford. If you look at 95% financing, the gap widens to $161,400. And I should mention that the median price for a condo was $299,000, with still affordability gaps. For those earning at 80% of area median income, the gap was $102,500 with 95% financing. Condominiums were considerably more affordable than single-family houses in this particular community. We figured that about 1% of single-family houses would have been affordable to those earning at or below 80% of area median income. But that number goes to 44% based on condos, and we were looking at assessed values. And another important thing to consider is our cost burdens. There are still substantial cost burdens where people are spending more than what they should for housing. For example, 30% of Grafton households were spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs. 764, or 11%, were spending more than half their income on housing costs. We'll go to the next slide. We did identify a number of priority housing needs. This is basically a continuation of previous plans and also was echoed in the Housing Trust's Housing Action Plan, which a continued focus on rental housing, an effort to further diversify the housing stock for both families and seniors, focus on the most vulnerable residents, rental housing being traditionally more affordable. Which our town has low vacancy rates, 2.8% for rentals. And most state subsidies are for rentals. There's very little support out there for home ownership. Most of the subsidies are focused on rental properties. We still believe that first-time home ownership needs to continue to be a priority for starter housing for young families. We saw those kind of the serious decline of younger residents, and units for empty nesters as well, or at least different options for empty nesters. Based on the aging of the population, it's important to integrate handicapped accessibility and supportive services into new development. We had some goals for that. And also, based on the aging of the housing stock, the need for some home repair assistance for lower income owners. And I'm going to quickly summarize the housing strategies that are included in the plan. And as we've done in the past, these should be viewed as kind of a package of strategies. It's at this stage, it is difficult to get consensus on each one, but this is kind of reflects strategies that have been in other plans, that have been included in the Housing Trust Housing Action Plan, or those that have been a priority of the town in general and the planning board. Each of these strategies for implementation would have to go through its normal regulatory channels. First, talk about fostering the development of town-owned land. Years 1 to 3 for the first project, and the Housing Trust is really focused on the Hudson Avenue property, and then another town-owned property in years 4 and 5. And the Housing Trust is making progress towards development of Hudson Avenue, and fingers crossed. We also mentioned the plan, the potential to for the town to maybe acquire some property and include on that maybe some amount of affordable housing that has been done in other communities. And there's some good examples of that. And also potentially including textile property. Another strategy, an ongoing one, is to review 40B comprehensive permit proposals, working with developers on private sites to try to make those projects as much as possible within town preferences and priorities. Also, we did a number of years ago, did a little RFP that wasn't issued, but it was related to trying to look at existing projects and actually include a greater number of affordable units, actually effectively buying down units in pipeline projects. Pursue mixed-use and transit-oriented development. The planning board has made considerable progress in identifying 240R districts, one in Fisher Mill Overlay District and the other one in North Grafton Transit Village Overlay District. It has approved village mixed-use zoning that added affordability component, and is working on a potential village zoning in Worcester Street as a kind of new gateway to the community mixed uses. All of these include affordability components. Also support scattered site infill development and assistance. There are opportunities within existing neighborhoods to develop affordable housing on an infill basis without having negative impacts on the community. Examples include habitat projects, accessory dwelling units, pocket neighborhoods where there's kind of a small cluster of units around a common open space that can be done. Great models for small developments, as well as a housing rehab program. And lastly, to create a homebuyer assistance program that can be done through different approaches that are described in the plan, basically converting existing housing into long-term affordable SHI units. We also included a number of operating and outreach strategies, and these are really kind of key housing trust activities. and I'll just list them: conduct outreach and advocacy for affordable housing, establish funding thresholds and underwriting criteria, conduct annual audits, establish subcommittees related to specific tasks that the Housing Trust is entrusted with, hold biannual strategic meetings, and expand professional planning resources. And we mentioned that the CMRPC has been trying to establish a regional housing services component such that individual communities could buy into a menu of services. And such regional approaches have been working very well in the Metro West area and the north suburban areas of Boston, as well as the area around Hudson. And CMRPC has been looking for a lead community to kind of deal with the administration. So that is something that really is worth exploring. Lastly, we included several zoning and land use strategies. One is to adopt village zoning in the Worcester Street area. The Planning Board has been working on a Route 30 Transit Village Master Plan, and the idea is to create another mixed-use village, as I mentioned, as a kind of a gateway to Grafton with walkability and just basic kind of smart development. Now, there's to amend the flexible development bylaw. Another smart idea is to do cluster zoning and do open space preservation, but the current bylaw doesn't include any affordability provisions. So we suggest putting incentives in the bylaw to mandate and encourage affordable housing, and to allow development of non-conforming lots that involve some part of affordability. Was suggesting exploring other bylaws in other communities that have been working, to do some further research on where many of these lots that don't meet all the dimensional requirements, but still would be developable for starter housing or housing for empty nesters, and then to identify districts and guidelines to allow them to be developed. So the next step is really to get approvals from the Planning Board and Board of Selectmen, submit the plan to the state, and the plan has to be submitted directly by the community, but I'll give all the instructions on how that needs to be done. The state technically has a 90-day review period. They've been better at the time frame. I think it would be really useful to stress kind of the need to have maybe more an expedited review, and I'm happy to contact the state kind of liaison on that. And then we'll put the draft on the town's website as well, so people can have a closer look. So that kind of in a quick nutshell is what is included in the document, and however you want to discuss or have questions, I'm happy to.
You can open the floor to
Provide
take
input, yeah.
questions from the boards. Does anybody have anything in particular?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple. With that 90-day review period, will the comments be allowed from people on the plan to the state?
Once it's submitted to the state, that's it.
All right, so the 90-day review,
It's just when they get the time they get the plan, and when they have to have it approved or denied. I mean,
Yeah.
that's never been a problem, but in work that I've
so someone
done,
could read it, they're just reading it, they can't make a comment about something.
not after you submit it to the state.
So I have three other things, if I could just run through them real quick.
Fire away.
So senior housing, though, if they're affordable, they count. So we did a like that one in Leominster where there's a big 3-story building with just assisted living. Nothing like that works.
You know what? It is really hard to get assisted living counted under the SHI. There are specific provisions in the state's local initiative program that provides all the guidelines on, what's included and what's not for assisted living. But because assisted living involves the services component, it's hard to kind of cost that out. I am aware of a couple of developments that are assisted living that have been included in the SHI, but they are a bit idiosyncratic. So it's not impossible, but it's hard to shoehorn those types of units. Independent living, it's part of the community care, continuing care retirement community. The independent units, there are lots of examples of that. But it's when you add the services it becomes complicated.
And to add on to that, because one of those communities is Wayland, where we had units that were counted for assisted living, we had to demonstrate, because, as Karen said, it's a package, that basically the market units were subsidizing the package costs. And those package costs, meaning room, board, activities, were all things that people charged for. And there was limited amount of resources you could cash out of a house to then qualify. So it was very difficult to fill those, and it isn't as the same as independent living.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
With the mixed-use component and having that piece, is there a strategy for the first-time home buyers and linking some of the funding for closing cost, or, first-time home buyers for a deposit to get them into that house inside those districts? Since you're focusing zoning on that area, would it make sense to put the dollars with those areas for those first-time buyers in those mixed-use areas?
What we have in the plan is a way of, in that kind of a buy-down program, subsidizing the difference between the market price and the affordable one. In the mixed-use area, certainly if you want to do first-time home buyer and do condominiums, that'd be fine. We didn't add a thing on down payment and closing cost assistance, but we could add something like that.
And then, this is just odd, just for the numbers, and we have people that are very wealthy and some people that are very poor. There's a huge
Yeah.
difference between the two. I'm just trying to figure out the 19% that's in that 35,000 and under earning. Mm-hmm. Are they renting? Are they in a house with a parent?
It's a mix.
Where are they? We can't identify if they're in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot
or-
more information in the plan that
All
kind
right.
of tries to, drill down a little bit more. But we have lots of different income information in there.
Thank you.
Okay, so for Prentice Street, which you have a large, because of course all rental units count. So if this plan expires and we don't have a new one in place, then if the comprehensive permit gets issued during that period, then it doesn't count on anything.
If it's issued between the expiration of the current plan and the state approval of this plan, it will fall between the cracks.
Okay.
That's why, I think there was an interest in trying to move this along, and also I think it's useful to, going to be open with DHCD that the timing, we'd like to them to try to expedite the review if at all possible.
Okay. With that being said, what else do you need?
But we still have, if it's submitted they have 90 days. So if we, there's still more than 3 months. So I think it's,
When do we have to submit it by?
well, you have 3 months, it's end of July, so it would certainly be, you'd want it submitted in May, and sooner the better, actually.
July,
By end of April.
Yeah.
Soon, I would say, the sooner the better.
What do you have to do, voting?
we have to vote and have to hold a public hearing for it. That's it. So, but we
Giddy up.
put everybody in the room for it.
It's great.
We also are, once we get to that point, we have to give it out for review a little bit. We don't have to, but we should if we got some time. So,
Yeah.
because this is,
Review to,
well, if we're gonna put the final draft on the website, and let people explore it, or if, we didn't notify for a public hearing tonight, although it is on the agenda as a public hearing.
What's the time frame on the ZBA on that, Prentice?
They were supposed to ask for a request last night. I don't know if it happened.
Request
For extension of time
The
to make
applicant?
the decision. The board, because they have members that have individual health concerns, they're trying to get it extended. I think there is a May deadline for them to make a decision, but I think they're trying to get an extension from the applicant.
So if they make a decision in May, the current plan is still active, right?
The issue-
So
So we should be
count.
okay.
Yes, it's active till the end of July,
So they gotta make a decision before then, or
July
Or get
28th.
this approved.
Yeah, so if this is, the 90 days, it may take them 40 days to.
It might take them 40 days, exactly. They've been better than the 90-day period.
But they have 90 days to review. So if we submit this by the end of April, there will be no gap in between the old plan and the new.
That's right.
So, and once they approve, it's law of the land, so to speak. The old one goes away, regardless of whether it goes to July 28th.
That's right. That's right.
Is there we're talking about having a hearing, is there a notice requirement, for this hearing? You know, like, we have notice requirements for everything.
Right, exactly. There is no specific notice requirement. You know, they don't say you have to have something, a legal notice in a paper or something, whatever. The state likes to see that there are opportunities for civic engagement in passing these plans. So the idea is to try to get the word out and to folks and encourage people to participate.
So what we've done on the Affordable Housing Trusts in our development of it and what we're doing here tonight should be sufficient.
Well, it could be, and I think maybe for people who, this is being televised.
Yep.
So for people who out there have listened to this, if they go to the website, if you have comments, you know, to please contact is Joe the best person to contact on
Joe or
that?
Rachel, right?
Yeah, the planning department.
Okay.
And the draft plan's been on the web for a while, Joe?
Yes.
Have we received any commentary?
No, we've only received comments from staff or board members.
Okay.
Things that I'd like us not to have to come back together again this month to vote. And I read through this whole thing, and lots of great information. And I didn't find anything that is a problem.
That's good enough for me.
We ought to do the right things, is what it says.
Yep.
And it says we have a chance of making our targets if things go well.
All right, so
That's
everybody's
pretty
comfortable
much what
making
70-some pages says.
That's right.
And let's make sure that
a- making a vote.
the draft plan is available on the town website if you happen to know where to look. I might recommend putting something prominent on the front page of the website so that people don't have to scratch their heads and go digging around and clicking here and clicking there and eventually stumbling over it.
I put the path to it on Facebook today.
Yes.
Okay. So what this would be is required is a vote to approve it by the Board of Selectmen and one separate vote, of course, by the Planning Board. So, what
Which one do you want to go first? Us?
You guys go first.
Yeah, I move that we approve the plan.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the plan. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
All right, so I suppose I could. I guess I would be remiss, we assume we do have a lot of people in the audience. I assume it's for other things than this. But is there anyone with any particular comments or questions that they have this time? All right, hearing none.
I move the board vote to approve the housing production plan as presented.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Passes as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation. Very informative.
I move we adjourn.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
So
That,
so we need the second motion?
yeah, the housing choice designation approval, and chair authorization for application submission.
Wait, we
Yeah.
need this?
That's for me.
No, but
To
is this,
send it?
is this something is this to send it?
Yeah.
This isn't for something else?
This is to actually make the submittal to.
Yes,
Okay. That's by simple motion.
exactly. So, housing choice designation. It's a program that the governor announced about a month and a half ago. Basically, similar to Green Communities, it's a program where towns that have demonstrated a ability to produce housing are able to qualify for getting additional access to grant funds or get priority ranking for grant funds. And so Rachel is finishing putting together an application. One of those documents is a approval from the chair of the Board of Selectmen that needs to be signed to go along with that submission. So the letter or the material that you have and what you're being asked for is just to be able to authorize the signature for that application so that we can finalize that submission to the state.
I move the board vote to approve Grafton as a housing choice designee and authorize the chair to sign the application for submission.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you, Joe. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
thanks.
Let's see, the community or committee for natural gas leaks wasn't able to attend tonight, so we're passing that over.
Yep.
No resignations, no appointments, going right into new business. The first thing up is the rate contracts with Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. That's
So we have both Ken Lombardi and Denise Cole here to talk about the Harvard Pilgrim Health Plan. The PEC voted to leave the GIC back in November, and we sent that letter along. And now for July 1, we need to have contracts executed by the Board of Selectmen because you have authority over health insurance program selection. We've only had one bid, which was Harvard. We think it's a good plan, and with it still has an increase, but certainly better than where the GIC would have taken us. So I want Ken and Denise to come up and walk you through the executive summary of the decision we made and talk about the particulars of the vote that's required for going with the Harvard plan, and a couple other Fallon for retirees and so forth. You guys can come right up to the
Yeah, please.
and sit with us. So Ken was here probably 2 months ago to kind of talk this through.
Put 'em up.
So we could just take the board through the executive summary and just move us through what they're actually voting on to get us, because we have logistics for open enrollment, health fairs, mailings, 500 people that need to change health insurance. So it's a big undertaking for us.
Yes, absolutely. Well, good evening, Ken Lombardi and Denise Cole. I think you may have figured that out. So what we wanted to bring the board up to date with is that this is the time when, as Tim had mentioned, what's in front of the Board of Selectmen as the insurance authority with the town is the summary of the plans that are being proposed by Harvard Pilgrim effective July 1st of 2018. Tim's right. What needs to happen in the next series of steps is that town signs off on the rate contracts, which authorizes Harvard Pilgrim to implement the healthcare plans effective July 1st. HR departments, treasurer's department, our staff would work with both school and the town to set up open enrollment meetings and get employees on board to sign up for health insurance for effective July 1st. Time is critical because we're technically supposed to provide to the employees by May 1st exactly what those plan components are according to sort of the rules and regulations of our of the process. And more importantly, we want to make sure that the employees get enrolled properly, get their ID cards, have educational meetings, information sessions, ask questions, and then try to make sure that payroll gets set up properly as well for July 1st. The Public Employee Committee, town management, and insurance advisors have been meeting over the last couple of months to talk about the healthcare plan. We have generally settled on the health plan construct, so the co-pays, deductibles, the way the plans work, HMO, PPO, POS plans, plan styles, senior plans, all of that is sort of wrapped up. A couple of loose ends are still being worked on, but generally from the board's perspective, what we're looking to have the board at least sign off on tonight are those rate contracts with Harvard Pilgrim. The issue being is that it really was the only competitive proposal we received. I think I mentioned last time I was here that some of the benefits to the plan, contemporary plan design, we have sort of a level of benefits that provides savings to both the employees and to the town. We also believe that because of the plan construct strategy is that over the next couple of years, we should enjoy hopefully some favorable results as a result of that. No one can predict the future, but the plan is set up that way at this point in time. So ultimately, what we're here to do is just kind of answer any questions about the plan, make sure if there's any concerns about what are the decisions that we arrived at, and then we can help kind of explain those. But ultimately, what we're looking for you folks to do tonight is to approve a motion to authorize the town administrator to sign off on those contracts. So happy to answer any questions.
So can you take it through the first one to Harvard, the retirees are going Fallon and Aetna, and
Sure.
there's a lot of those intricacies.
Yeah, there's, well, unfortunately, nothing's that simple. Number of contracts that need to be signed off on. So for the active employees and non-Medicare retirees, they're gonna be enrolled in HMO-style plans. I think there's
They have three
three
choices-
plan options?
Three choices of plan options. One is the Harvard Pilgrim full network. One is the Harvard Pilgrim, a select network, is a smaller network, and therefore the cost to the employee in the town is less. It's an option. And then they also have what's called a PPO, which is a mix of an HMO and also out-of-network benefits. So all three active plans are being offered and administered through Harvard Pilgrim. The senior plans, we have three offerings. We have one through Harvard Pilgrim, we have one through Fallon Senior, and one through the Tufts Health Plan. And that was asked for by the retirees because they enjoy, or they are in favor of having all three plans offered. So they have a choice.
The prices are different between those three
Yeah,
plans?
slightly,
Just
not
like-
huge.
Okay.
But the contrib shares are different for each plan. So an active employee,
Oh, yes, yes.
And then the
Yes, the active
retirees.
contribution level is different than the retiree. And the cost of the three retiree plans are slightly different, and so are the active plans. All the rates are set separately because of course you have one that has a large network, one that has a limited network, and then one that has complete freedom of choice.
Question, Tim, so this is a 6.5% increase from the current year's
Yep.
insurance cost. So what does that mean dollar-wise for the entire school and town side total?
the total increase of the budget itself is about $116,000. So it's not a true, because when we went to the GIC, we had to offer offsets to deductibles, and we paid employees to join the GIC. So we had some savings the first year, and we offered those savings for 3 years. So because I don't have that cost next year, the increase, since I don't have to pay the employees for all those out-of-pocket expenses that they had to endure or enjoy through the GIC, those costs go away. So my net increase, when I back those costs out, is only $116,000. So which is the lowest dollar amount I think we've ever seen in terms of net increased dollars for health insurance.
How much does that stipend or that extra cost play into it that we're giving them for being?
You have those.
250 a year,
Yeah.
250,000 in additional payments
two
to,
employees.
But remember, you had a savings when you joined the GIC that totaled about $250. So we shared that savings because the way we negotiated the PC agreement mandated that.
so the 6.5%, if that number didn't exist, that 250 would be like 360,000 increase this year? I'm just thinking about next year. If we have the same percentage increase, it's gonna be 360.
If you have a 6% increase in 20,
From
In
the, yeah,
2020?
from this, whatever this number is
Yep.
total, if the rate increases the same for next year and there's none of that payback to the employees of being in GIC, it would be like 300, that 6.5% would reflect around 360,000 in additional costs.
yeah, with the rate increase of 5 or 6% in fiscal 20, you'd be paying out $300,000 in new dollars for health insurance for your employees. But I mean, we've been in the $600,000 and $700,000 range in 2009, 2010.
Wow.
That's why we went to the GIC, because we wanted to contain that cost.
So, cost drivers for these particular programs now that we're out of the GIC, is it the actual rate of the plan that we negotiate, of course, every year, and then people subscribing to the plan?
Yeah, cohort utilization is going to be used to help set premium rates in the future.
Okay.
Every 1% is about $43,000, so I think you were pretty accurate in thinking about 4 or 5%. We still have healthcare trends, whether you're in the GIC or not, to still kind of manage. And with the design of the plan is hopefully attempts to limit utilization or not restrict it, but necessarily make sure that it's used properly. So we are hopeful that our increased trends in the future will be limited.
But there's always that off chance where you have a year where enrollment skyrockets and the cost of the plan skyrockets as well.
Well, maybe the cost based on utilization, demographics. I'm not sure the enrollment growth would be significant. Part of the art and science of the process is to contemporize the plan to make sure that, and I'm not being insensitive, but to not make the plan so extremely attractive that it gains open enrollment growth during the annual process. I think at this level, there'll be a lot of folks looking at comparisons between spouse plans and finding that this one benchmarks there. So we probably won't see a significant increase in enrollment growth.
Okay.
And I think you'll continue to offer the opt-out too,
Yep.
correct?
Yeah, there's still pieces with the PEC because that agreement, we have to negotiate a successor agreement, which we're doing. But the logistics of getting 500 people, give or take, enrolled in a plan and that logistic, we're still going to adhere to those rules with the PEC. So this is mutually exclusive from that.
And this has a deadline of April 10th.
Yeah, because we have to do a mailing, they have to do open enrollment, people have to get ID cards, there's health fairs. There's a lot of stuff that happened before July 1.
And this is something that has to get renegotiated every year, right? You can't
Yeah.
buy in for 3 years or 5 years and get a
Well, there's
set
two
price.
pieces. I mean, the Harvard's probably not going to give us a rate guarantee for 3 years. So they're going to look at the loss run for the past 3 years, and they gave us this rate. Then they'll look at this one and the last two, and they'll base 20's rate on that. And then there's the PEC piece is good for a year. I'll have to renegotiate that piece as well. So the benefits that the PEC membership enjoyed for the 3 years with the GIC, or 3.5 years, those are going to go away. There may be some remnants of a plan from 2010 that's still available, but those are yet to be determined, because I don't know those cost impacts yet. I might know them tomorrow.
Yes.
Will they be significant?
They'll be manageable within that
Okay.
110,000 we have budgeted.
So how this is different from the private sectors, we have a bunch of bargaining units, right, that negotiate what we have to provide as far as like a minimum standard is concerned, and then our contribution to those particular plans. Is there like, so I just recently gave my employees health care. So it was it's not a straightforward process, but a very expensive process. But I'm able to determine, the state dictates my minimum, and then I can determine what I want to provide as far as everybody is concerned. And then when I provide me, of course, I provide everybody, and there's limits for family and individuals. So I think individual was 50%, and then family was 33%. Is that different for every bargaining unit?
No, it has to be the same. For active
regardless
employees,
of the unit,
are
so-
70-30, retirees, depending on whether an HMO or an indemnity plan, it'll be 65-45. So there's a lot of nuance to those pieces. I don't have them right in front of me, but if you are an active employee in the town, whether you're an individual plan or a family plan, your contrib share is 30%.
Okay. All right.
Yes, so.
Which I mean, at one point you were at an 85-15, so
So it's
we've
it
gotten
is
more push to the employees to pay a heavier burden.
Okay.
So it's 70-30 for the HMO, it's 65-35 for the PPO, and 55-45 for indemnity.
And that's family or individual?
And then for, the Medicare plans, it's 70-30. The senior plans.
And those are typically cheaper.
Oh, yes.
The
Those are
supplements
all
to
individual
Medicare.
plans.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Just real quick, the email I saw you guys had written back, but that was all cleared up.
Yeah, I mean, I had Mark in the office today for Merrick, and then I have Nick, who works for Merrick O'Connell, who's an attorney, who was in all of our PEC meetings. And he had a conversation with the MTA rep, which is by, I don't know, by default, he became the liaison for the PEC. So those two attorneys are talking, and he has some authorization to work out details instead of trying to get 16 people in a room and schedules with teachers and police and everybody else. So for this purpose, for what we're doing tonight, we're fine. That process still is going to go on.
Just want to clarify.
Yeah. I thought I tried to make that as clear as possible at the beginning too.
And if it comes to loggerheads, there's some comfort level that we would be in the right.
Yeah, and if there were changes to this, it would be reflected in the premiums, right? And then you would have to re-sign another contract if we had to go that route. But that's not going to impact how we send letters and enroll people.
Okay. Anything else?
I move that the board vote to sign the contract with Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Actually, there's a whole list of these, right? I mean, you got the retirees, you got,
Yeah, that'd be done separately?
yeah, because you have the chair to sign for the information form, Tough Senior Plan, the Fallon Senior Plan. Yeah, I'll give you this. Someone can.
Yep, that's fine. Pass it on now. Or Starbuck, whichever.
Oh, was it not in the? What did we miss?
Oh, you have it there?
It wasn't.
Yeah,
on
he
the-
has it here. Never made it to the packet that these have to be independent.
There's 6 of them.
All right, we got 6. We'll work our way through. Do you mind just hanging out for 2 seconds longer? Can't do
Which
this in
one?
one
Right,
blanket.
because there are
The
6
first
things
one
that the chair
I
will
did-
sign.
didn't
We'll
really-
get to
Yep.
tomorrow.
That was the first one?
There's 3 senior,
Yeah, I don't get what-
1 active,
Separate from,
and then there's, one of the senior plans has
I
a
said
separate
this, I
contract.
think that made
for
any sense.
prescription drug.
And then there's an
Just do
information
all
sheet
6
that the
again,
chair has
it's
to
fine.
sign.
Okay.
The first one overlaps.
But I'd rather have them just motion it all.
What's
Yeah.
the delta for the senior, the 3 plans, like what?
Second.
I mean, is there a big, like, what does that mean dollar-wise, from the big, to the most expensive to the least expensive?
Do you know what the difference is in the 3 senior plans, the cheapest?
You said it
the most
wasn't much,
expensive?
but what does that mean? What's the town's portion of that?
Okay, so the Harvard Pilgrim, their senior plan is $328.17 a month.
That's the total plan?
Yep.
So
That's
the
full
town's,
cost.
so the town's burden on that would be a third, about?
70%.
If they're, yeah, if,
Yep. The Fallon senior plan is $394.
we would pay 70%, the employee would pay 30%.
Yeah.
All right,
And, the Tufts Health Plan, senior plan is $324.50.
So it's
I
really
would-
the 394, that's the one that's like,
And I would expect that people would eventually, so the senior plans renew every January. So they'll be on for 6 months and then there'll be a rate review. I would think that in January, a lot of those folks, if they are in the senior plan, will move over to the Harvard Pilgrim because the Harvard Pilgrim has no network. They can see anyone who has a Medicare provider. So this is just sort of like the initial transition, and then come next October, we'll be visiting with the seniors again and going over their plan options.
and how many seniors do we,
off the top of my head, I don't know what the demographics are on the numbers.
Altogether, there's 172 retirees. They could be a husband and wife team, so they're not actual all extra employees.
I mean, so it could cost us like $45,000 between the top plan and the bottom plan at our third, that's the delta, that's pretty big money.
Yeah, and I think that's why people choose the lesser expensive plan, because they wanna have less
just-
delta
yeah.
for their 70%.
They just need some education.
But do we need to offer that top plan, I guess is my question. That's the Tufts, right?
Nope, that's the Harvard Pilgrim.
Harvard Pilgrim, okay.
Oh, no, wait, hold on a minute. No.
Well, no, the delta's
No, no,
only
no.
80,
That's
like
the
$10,000.
Huh?
It's only $10,000. I mean, if you take
So-
70%, it's like, what's the difference between 394 and 324? It's like 70. You take
A third of that.
a third of
Times
that.
12 months, times hundred and 72 people.
Oh, times 12 months, that's right.
So, no, you don't have to offer it. The most expensive plan is the Fallon Senior Plan. And that's the plan that I think you may see people move from come next January. But you don't have to offer it. It was available.
I mean, the other two are close, you know, they're $4 apart. This one is significantly more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are in that particular plan, so I don't know what that true cost is. We can get who's in that plan, or who would likely go in that plan.
We offer that plan now.
Well, the GIC does, so there's enrollment in it.
I think there was an attempt to try and be consistent, but we could reevaluate this for January 1st. And
The other side of it is, Craig, because we're negotiating with the PEC as a group of all the bargaining units,
Including-
that was one of the things that they were, you know, in good faith trying to continue to be consistent so they don't have to go find other doctors.
No, I don't wanna see people have to do that too, especially seniors, you know, but it's a big number, and I don't know what we've traditionally done, how many plans we've offered.
Well, they had a variety of plans offered through the GIC.
Yeah,
So
13 now.
So that's.
now-
That's
So
different,
that's
yeah.
the issue that we're dealing with, trying to consolidate that into less
Right.
plans and accommodate everyone at the beginning of this fiscal year.
But we've been in the GIC for what, like
3.5 years.
3 or 4 years, yeah. So before that, what would be a traditional, how many plans would you offer?
pretty much the same thing. We had several plan options prior to going into the GIC
Okay.
as well.
Okay. I'm just throwing it out there, it's 40 grand, potentially. That's worst case scenario, 43 grand, it's worst case. So do we wanna offer that plan or not?
The rationale behind.
Just do the two, you know, the other two are very close, this one's not.
The rationale behind the plan was just consistency with what it was previously
Right, that's
provided.
all.
Yes.
Right, so let me just tell you that, so you have the Harvard Pilgrim Senior Plan, which is a complete, no referrals, complete open network, as long as their doctor accepts Medicare, they're fine. The other two plans have networks. So, but I would think that, anyone on the Fallon Senior would be able to maneuver through the Tufts Senior, so I think it was,
They can figure out how many people are in it.
Yeah.
Should be able to find that out.
well,
We won't know how many people go into, but
We won't know until
people are in
actually
it.
they're in it.
Right.
But you'll know how many people are in it now. It'll give you an idea if it's 175 or 4.
the problem is that the GIC doesn't give us any information as far as who has what provider. I mean, we can gain that information as we move forward, but I wouldn't be able to tell you if there was any disruption, and there shouldn't be. But I can't guarantee that.
Well, we must have that information.
You'd have to go through it manually for the senior plans. See, normally
Yeah,
you
on paper applications when they enroll.
see, when you're dealing with an insurance company directly, like if you had Fallon now and you said I wanted to go to Harvard Pilgrim,
Yeah.
Fallon would give me everyone's PCP, and Harvard Pilgrim would run it through their network of doctors and say, it's a 98% match, or it's a 70% match. But the GIC doesn't release that information, so we have no way of knowing unless we go through every single retiree file to see who they chose for primary care physician.
Yeah.
But we will have that, if you went with as of July 1st, if you went with the 3 plans, come January, when the next renewal is for the senior plans, we will have that information.
Are the plans comparable, the 3 plans that, you know, is the Harvard Pilgrim, the Tufts, and the Fallon all comparable as far as,
Benefits?
yeah,
Yes.
so. I say we get rid of the Fallon, but that's my opinion.
I don't know, I think we've gone from 13 to 3, just to give people,
Most people get 1, so, you know, most
That's
people,
right.
private sector
I
people
only
get
get
1. So, I don't know if we need 3 or not, but.
To be honest, I would give more, but as a small business, I really can't, because it's almost impossible to find something that suits everybody that's within the realm of
Actually, private sector
affordability.
gets
Well, private companies know we don't.
Retirees wouldn't get any health insurance, you know, in the private sector.
They certainly don't do that.
Well, even if you did what Craig said now, or if you waited a year, you'd know next year.
I wouldn't.
So, I mean, you could give them, I know you don't want to do this, but you would have a better idea next year on how many people
Well,
are
it's gonna be
actually
a 6-month
participating.
period.
Well,
If we
we'll,
opt-
yeah, we'll have to reevaluate this in the fall anyways, because these plans would renew each January 1st thereafter.
So essentially, our total exposure, if
Might not be
every,
people on that plan.
Yeah, I mean, it's a less than 1% risk of the 45,000. It's a $4.6 million budget.
Oh,
So,
you know what, I might have the breakdown of enrollment for you.
I don't know what it would be, but.
Currently? I have no idea. Most
In
of
each
it's
plan?
yeah.
Oh, you have it.
I don't know. Well,
Oh.
technically, we did.
What?
Oh.
What? That doesn't sound good.
The majority are in the balancing.
Okay.
so the majority are in the higher.
That doesn't mean it won't change.
Right.
Okay.
It'll change if we don't offer it.
Excuse me?
I'm not gonna ask for that, so you can ask for that if you like, I can't do it.
Somebody make a motion. You guys know how I feel. I think I think if they're all comparable plans, they're gonna get good services, which is important, obviously, for all our employees and past employees. I think if we're offering them two good plans, then I think that's pretty good. Why take something that's a lot different from a cost perspective, you know?
Just from my perspective, we asked them to pull out of GIC with us on this. So to keep it as close to what they had previously is probably the best approach in mind. We can reassess it, of course, because we have a little bit more control in January to go through it. So, and certainly if the majority of people enrolled in that found for the retired, I don't want to pull that out midstream. So, but
I see Craig's logic, but I
get
think
it.
I agree with you on this, Bruce.
all right, let's.
So
we wouldn't, well, I mean, you could make a motion.
No, didn't we vote? Did we vote?
well, so
We did, but
technically we
didn't
voted
see-
on
We just
We need to
voted on
break
one
them
piece
apart.
of it.
Oh, okay.
I think,
So
right?
we're gonna be a little bit more
in depth.
accurate, in depth. Thank you.
Yeah, the motion we made kind of didn't mean anything.
Fired in there. Sir.
All right, so number one, I move the board vote to authorize the chair to sign the Harvard Pilgrim active employee application.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move the board vote to authorize the chair to approve the group information form.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move the board vote to authorize the chair to sign the Tufts Senior Plan application.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I move the board vote to authorize the chair to sign the Fallon Senior Plan application.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I move the board vote to authorize the chair to sign the Aetna Senior Plan RX application as part of the Harvard Pilgrim Senior Plan.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I move the board vote to authorize the chair to sign the Harvard Pilgrim Senior Medical Plan application.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Now thank you.
I think oh no, never mind. We're good. We're good.
You want this back, Tim?
Sure, yeah.
All right.
So when he signs those tonight, I'll get them to you tomorrow, is that all right?
It
works.
If you-
I can try and get them, actually.
All right, that'll be good.
Alright.
Is that a special trip? I can sign them now, if you like.
Oh, sure, I'll wait.
All right, Nico, you can pass those through, and we have,
Go first.
okay. OPM for library renovations, DA Sullivan, Tim, Rebecca.
All right, so we had a number of qualified folks that went before the library building committee, and Mark Sullivan was the best proposer for the OPM services. So we contacted him, we had a fee proposal from him for $347,500. And I don't know, did Mark come? Andy, is Mark here? Just you? All right. So we met with him, we discussed that figure, we actually had it reduced to $172,500, using Andy Duchesne as the clerk of the works, because he had a $175,000 figure for the clerk of the works, that was removed. This, that 172 will be reimbursed at about 50% from the state under the MLBC guidelines. Thinking about this globally between the DPW and the library projects, having Andy on board, we saved $230,000 on OPM services for both projects. We were saving $296 with DPW. It's important to note with this reimbursement, there's $64,000 that will not be reimbursed for that part of the contract for clerk of the work services. We will get back $86,000 on average for the Sullivan contract. And ultimately, you think of those two projects saving $230. Andy and I talked about this late last week. You know, the value of having someone who lives here and on staff, being the clerk of the works and OPM for the DPW facility, there's going to be savings and intangibles that we're going to garner from this. So the goal is, even though we're spending $60,000 on the clerk services for the library, we think that salary is saved throughout the project. So that's why we want to move forward with Sullivan as the OPM and Andy as the clerk. Not that that's part and parcel of this, it's just the ratification of the OPM service contract with DA Sullivan. So I don't know if you, Andy, if you want to add anything to that or not, but I know you were in the meeting with me when I met with Mark.
Yeah, so, just real briefly, I think it's the best of both worlds. Sullivan's they're a good outfit. They fit right in with what the state is looking for in terms of their process and having somebody they're familiar with. And then for the construction piece, which is actually the longer piece of this whole project, you'll have me taking care of things and paying close attention, being a mile away from the job site. So I think it's a really good combination.
We haven't voted
did
on
know
it yet.
Just want to commend Tim for doing a great job during the negotiations with Sullivan. Andy's right. I mean, they're a great firm, and it's great. I think it worked out really well. So.
Yeah, I mean, my math early on, I thought this number for that OPM service was much higher. Well, after you sign it, I'll say more, I guess. So we were very lucky. It's just the savings wasn't as big as I initially thought it could or would have been.
Right.
But they were aggressive in their pricing, and they seem to have a good grasp on the project management side and the construction side.
Yeah.
So
They've been around for like over 100 years, right? I mean, they've been around a long time. Yeah.
Just give him a once over.
Good
Make sure I
Western
went
Mass
through
firm.
everything.
Thank you.
There might be some stuff you need to fill in for
Okay.
dress work.
I think it'll be a good fit.
I think it's great. Yeah, excellent.
The next step
Well
is to
done.
reselect an architect.
So you need a motion? Motion for the board to sign the contract for the owner's project management for the renovations for the library with D.A. Sullivan.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you.
Dan, why don't you come on up? All right, the next set of ballot and debt exclusion for doors and windows for the North Grafton Elementary School. Recall, we spent, was it 50 grand? $50,000 at the last town meeting to do a study to,
You guys, let's go.
all right.
Nicole,
Okay,
I'm sorry, real quick, is this just for
They-
Bruce
they all-
to sign?
you
I
guys all
don't
done?
see a line for 5 it's
all right.
for Sullivan.
Dan,
Yeah,
Now.
it must be that page that's marked. That's it.
I guess I need another
Thank you,
moment.
Bruce.
We all set, Nicole?
Is there only the one line on there?
There's only one line for the chairman.
Amend the motion. Sorry about that. So it needs to be for to authorize the chair to sign.
This is for D.A. Sullivan?
Yeah,
Okay,
let me just make sure they're all the same.
all right. We can do
The
that.
motion is to authorize the chair to sign.
Yeah, just, yep.
It seems strange.
That's fine.
Let me restate my motion
That's
here.
be fine, you can amend it.
All right, amend it to vote that the chair sign the contract with D.A. Sullivan.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I will indeed sign.
I'm sorry?
Now, Dan, a segue for you. Could you take us through the projects, why you guys want it, how much money we've spent already contributing to the projects, and if there were any contemplation of other funding sources besides debt exclusion? Take it away.
So we have the North Street windows. We got authorized the $50,000. So we spent that on a schematic design feasibility study that is now completed. So we've paid out the $50,000 to the architect firm. That was just submitted to the MSBA a few weeks ago, and they'll be reviewing it. I believe it's April 20th. Should have their meeting to approve their participation in that. So we've had the North Street windows kind of on our capital plan for a while. The MSBA offers to partner with window projects, so we submitted that request to them at least a year ago, I think. So they're approving that. So basically, we have the building was constructed in 1968, and we have the single pane windows, and that we have an addition since then, and also a modular on the back. But the main building, the windows are original. The aluminum framing is not insulated, and there's no thermal barrier, so it's affecting the classroom. Gets cold in the winter, a lot of drafts, and then also it doesn't keep the heat out that well either in the May, June, August, September. So we'd like to replace all those windows. Because of the cost, I think that exclusion is maybe the only way to go. But we're open to any suggestions. But
Dan, what's the total cost again?
we have a memo too. I don't know if you guys have it. The total budget is around 2.9 million to replace all the windows. And the town's portion is 47.74%, should be 1.4 million.
Just restate again, how many windows are we replacing?
Well, they call it 70 window units. Right now we have two-story windows, a lot of two-story windows. So they're counting that as one unit. And then, so I went back and forth with the architect, but they said 70 window units is the number. And then on the memo I broke out for you the construction costs is around 1.1 million.
Yeah.
Out of the 2.9.
Do we have a copy of this memo here?
Yeah, I sent one on the 9th and Jay's was on the 7th.
Yeah, just to make it into the budget.
You want these?
That's the stuff, but yeah, it's crazy.
And those are estimates, they're not, we haven't bid this project out.
So just
There's one more.
one, I guess.
So it's 40 grand a window?
Well, our portion's 20 grand a window.
40 grand a window to put in.
It's like 1.4 million divided by 70.
This is the
20,000.
architect's estimates, Dan?
Yeah, that's what's submitted to MSBA. It usually is a little bit high because we can only the MSBA won't. If it costs more, they won't.
So there's nothing wrong with the windows other than they're not energy efficient.
Right. We don't have any leaking, like window leaking. Just drafts coming in. That's
So what's the return on investment on that? Do we figure
we spend around $40,000 a year on heating
for that facility? And what do you think you're losing by having these windows?
We didn't get any. At some point, that if we move on, they'll get a very detailed cost estimate. But I was talking to Tony. We're thinking at most we could save up to $10,000 per year.
Okay, so
even if you cost it over.
So
50,
so at 10 grand, if it's costing us over $1 million, 1.4 million, that's
100 years.
that's a lot of years.
Yeah, I mean, when we did the Honeywell and the windows here, the $10,000 is a lot of savings.
Yeah, it's probably.
How much would these
So
be
why would we do this?
per window?
Why, it would be,
If you could double the heat and it's 35 years worth of paying the heat.
yeah.
If it was 80 grand to pay the heat, it's,
I mean, right now, we have a lot on our plate with these two projects. I mean, you know, so this debt exclusion, that would be obviously an additional cost to the taxpayers, right?
Yeah, it'd be 3 cents on the rate and average about $15 a year for 10 years. 10 years.
Okay, so if we didn't pursue this particular year, the MSBA awards these grants every year, when would this like expire, so to speak? When would we not be able to?
Well, once we get into the approval process, which we're in now, they will look for us to proceed with the project. They wouldn't want us to put it on hold for a long term and then ask again in a few years. We don't necessarily, I mean, they could give maybe up to a year to vote on it, but they're expecting usually for us to vote either May or October this year.
Okay, so for all the things that are on your particular capital list, we're moving this because we kind of spent 50 grand to get the study done, but with no appreciation of the fact that it was going to be 1.4 million on our side to
Yeah.
do these windows. I mean, the original,
Right.
what we thought
Well, it's gonna be
this was going to be, but that was going to be the total cost.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And
So-
I don't know if some of you had the memo, but I think we passed around a couple just now, but yeah, we thought it was going to be much less than that. But working with the MSBA, we add a lot with. So the construction cost is only about 1.1 million out of the 3.9. So more than half of it is about asbestos abatement, which is about $400,000 because of asbestos in the caulking, and then there's
okay.
another 400,000 just for the architect and the OPM.
Yeah.
But so if you don't disturb it, you don't have to.
No.
There's no can of
it's not
worms that's been
considered-
kicked
they were
open.
gonna
There's
do
no real
school to
detriment.
redo everything. Wasn't, at one time they were talking about,
It's windows and doors, right?
there's nothing else? It wasn't gonna get like a whole rehab?
Well, we did the heating system. We did all the univents.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? That was a capital, we just did that a couple years ago.
We just finished paying those leases.
6. I think,
Was it
I
been
think
that long?
This year's the same, yeah.
They just fell off.
I mean, we were gonna piecemeal the univents, and then we ended up through,
Yeah, through the Honeywell project.
CIPC, we ended up throwing it on, you piggybacked it on that, which worked out great. You know, it'd be hard to piecemeal this.
I don't like this approach to capital items as a whole, especially with this type of expenditure. So the same thing with the fire trucks. I'd say the same thing here. I think there's a level of appetite for debt exclusion projects, whether it's 5 cents on the dollar or not, that if we don't have an overall approach to capital in the town, I don't really feel like going out to the town and asking for money for a particular project and then another particular project, because I think as you get into subsequent projects, it's going to be far more difficult for us to get approval for them. So if we're going to launch a long-term capital program, and this would have to be on it, like in the past when we did capital, if it had a grant associated with it, it always got a priority over stuff that didn't have any additional money coming in. So I get why this could be attractive, but we'd have to put it on you'd have to go on the ballot. We'd be asking for 1.4 for one particular project on a capital plan, and I have to explain to people, as I've tried to explain over and over again, that a comprehensive approach to it is the way to go. And this would just be on the side. So
Well,
think you guys said we're
just, I mean, for me, it's not about a capital plan. We have a capital plan. It's about the burden on the taxpayer. I mean, I can't go to the credit union or the grocery store without having a senior come up to me concerned about how they're gonna pay their tax bill. We've done a lot of things in this town, and this to me is a want, not a need. I get that they're not energy efficient. I wish they were. But the return on investment is, you know, if it's over 7 or 8 years, it's, you know, it's questionable, and this is 100. I mean, we have so many needs. This is, to me, way down on the priority list. I mean, we just, you know, especially with everything else we have going on and the burden that we've already put on the people in this community. So to me, it's just irresponsible for us to support anything like this.
And I think our primary reason to pursuing it was just the environment in the classroom was getting too cold in the winter and too hot in the summer, and then also with the MSBA being willing to reimbursement, but it did come in a lot higher than.
Yeah. I mean, is it just the window, or is it the caulking around the window? Is it why? Because I mean, is this something new that's going on with these windows? I know they're 45 years old.
Yeah, they're coming up on 50 years. I think just the impact on the classroom that well, one of the things is this: we no longer had screens that were working on those, so we did get some kind of screen.
So they can open a part of the window.
Yeah. So that's kind of like we kind of band-aided that issue, and I think they're getting by with it. The windows open out, like new ones would come in, but the windows go out, so they have to take this, the screen
out.
The screen's inside, so they have to take it out to open the window and then put it back in. But it's manageable.
Yeah, that's okay.
But drafts. The primary problem is that they were just saying the drafting.
I have a question, I'm sorry, Tim, about, we are now a green community, so we're eligible for some grants for energy efficiency. Would we be able to, use
There
any?
wouldn't be enough energy savings generated for that.
Okay.
We could put it on the list. I mean, it wasn't on the list because we thought, we thought we had 50,000 allocated to do the study because we were gonna move down this road to get the application. If it was submitted, then we would figure out how we would pay for it. So, we just don't have 200,000 in excess levy to pay the debt service on the 1.4. That's why the contemplation of the debt exclusion.
We must be saving some money too with the new Univent system. I mean, right, with the Honeywell.
Yeah, but that goes into the paying the lease, and off the top of all new money, it pays for that debt service.
I'm just saying the 40 grand that it costs to heat that building. I mean, we must
well,
be
what was it
realizing.
before?
Yeah, we must be realizing some savings because of that project. You would think.
Yeah, well, they were burning oil, and now they're burning gas.
Right.
There was probably $40,000 right there.
Right.
Savings.
Yeah.
But it just got reallocated
Right.
to something else.
Who bid out this job?
So
It's just,
so it has
it's
to
an
be-
architect's estimate. It's
Yeah.
not bid out yet.
So could we bid it out and get a real number?
Well, I mean, architects are
spend more money on
paid to get within 10%.
Yeah.
So I don't want to, we're not gonna, I didn't want to spend the 50 grand to begin with to do the study if we weren't gonna do the project. That's just a waste.
Yeah,
of
but at the
50 grand.
time, we didn't realize.
Well,
it
what was the
gonna be
number at the time? What did we
2.9.
do?
I remember something
was
like
half,
1.4.
Yeah,
Half.
we thought.
It was half, so it was
we thought
we're
the
looking at
town-
750?
Yeah, we thought the town would be at least like around half of this.
That's more down in line with Univents. It's more in line with how we've approached some of these type of projects on the capital list as it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
that's a
did
big difference.
one year. We did.
Well, it's 100 grand.
60,000.
It's 100 grand a year. And that is a big difference, but.
Till 70
well,
years.
I-
Get your money back.
I
No,
wasn't.
but then you could say this building is pretty much, you don't gotta worry about it. You can kinda, 99% of it's all been renovated or brand new. You got new doors, new windows, new heating
Right.
system, new roof.
At some
Does that have
point,
a
they're
We
gonna
don't
have
know.
to be
This one?
replaced.
Yeah.
No.
Solar on it.
No, what about North Street?
North Street doesn't have a new roof. Millbury Street got a new roof through Capital about a few years ago.
A section of it, not the whole thing.
Yeah, not
I think
the
we
whole
did
thing.
a
The
section.
main section in the middle.
I don't know, in the private sector, they're offering now, I'm sure the solar systems that go on the roof, even if you need a new roof, they'll re-roof it for you too.
Yeah, it'll
these
just,
companies.
your money monthly will be lower.
But it'll be lower, but
Yeah,
you know.
we have our warranty
That
on
might be
our
something
roof.
for this town to think about.
You guys looked at putting solar on any of these school roofs? Have you guys talked about?
Yeah, we're planning to put solar on the Millbury Street roof, the roof that we did over a few years ago in the high school.
Good.
In the next year.
All right. So, as far as comfort level in the classroom and stuff like that, I'm sure there's some remedial things that you could do to alleviate some of those concerns. I don't know if we have an appetite for sending this out to debt exclusion. I don't think there's an appetite within the budget to, unless I'm wrong, what I'm reading from the board thus far. You know, skewing.
Well, just to clarify, that the debt exclusion would be paid out of the school budget or out of the town, out of our budget?
It would be
Some
just
kind of
a
town
levy.
taxes.
Be another tax on the
Yep.
tax.
It'd be just like the high school building.
Additional tax, yeah.
What does that number come out to be?
It's, on average, for a 10-year borrowing, it'll be about $15 a year. 2 cents on the rate, or 5 over the, you know. At the beginning, it'll be 2 cents, it'll go to 8, and, you know, as you get to the end, it'll go back down. But on average, about $15 a year.
For the average home being $330,000.
$377.
$377.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a tough sell.
But at what point are these windows gonna have to be replaced anyway? That's the, like, could we get another 20 years out of them, or? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Or are we gonna be back in
what I just
3 or
thought-
4
what I've
years
talked
and
to,
they're all busted and?
Yeah. What I've talked to Tony about was just about the integrity of the caulking, things like that. So in terms of that, we haven't seen any like water leakage. I think that'd probably be the thing that we'd be most afraid of in terms of the windows starting to fail.
And there's no sign of that yet.
We haven't seen any.
Well, for this particular ballot in the spring, I mean,
Can I just ask a question, Dan? Where did you get the 1.4 number from? The original
The
number?
original
Because
one?
I'm upset at ourselves for spending Tim's point the 50,000
Um,
to get this. I mean, but the whole reason was because everyone thought we would be at 1.4 for a total cost, which would be what, like 700,000 for our board, or go ask the taxpayers, but even come up with that money somewhere somehow. You know, that's more palatable. But where did you get that number from?
Yeah, Tony talked with a local window business. So I think part of the reason of the big difference is we weren't factoring any engineering or OPM or abatement costs. That's around $1 million right there. And then they kind of tack on a lot of general requirements, and there's also about I think about $500,000 of like contingency cost that MSBA allows for. So it's when I was talking to the OPM, they think our cost on this would be closer to 1 million, 1.1 million, like not the 1.4.
Do we need to have the OPM? Is that a requirement?
The requirements if it's
Yeah,
if,
for
if
projects
it's
over
over
$1 million.
$1 million.
we have one though.
That's why we have.
Good
yeah.
news.
So could we, eliminate that from the number? But that doesn't do much, it's only 100,000.
Finding the money to do this as a capital project is fine. I just don't want to go out the debt exclusion to do it. That's all. I don't want it on the
Still
ballot.
hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s for something that
There could be things that
we don't need to do
Yeah.
right now. That's kind of how I look at it.
I just worry, I just don't wanna be too short-sighted with it, but to your point, Bruce, there's no way we can do this either way right now. I mean, if in 10 years we have to replace the windows somehow, or, whatever, there's rotting or whatever, what do we, and we don't have MSBA, then it's like $3 million to replace windows or God knows what,
Well,
instead
then-
of 1.4.
we have a little bit of an argument there that we could use stabilization funds for those type of things too. If there was an actual failure of a building. I mean, that's what those funds are there for.
Sure.
So we wouldn't have to go to debt exclusion to do it, or at least subsidize it in that fashion. We couldn't do that now. They're not failing. It's uncomfortable, and I of course don't like that. But I think there's smaller things that you could do to remediate those things, or at least look at them. So, does anybody have any appetite to send this out for debt exclusion?
No. Unfortunately.
All right. Well, if it doesn't have this, at least 3 of us, it's not going anywhere. So, do you want a motion in the alternative, or shall we just say?
Well, when you get to the vote for the setting the town election, we'll strike that from the warrant that you'll sign for the ballot questions regarding the charter and the election of various boards and committees, so that'll just be stricken from that.
From the ballot
Yeah.
and from the warrant, right? It has to be on the warrant too.
Yeah. I really wish there was a way we could use other, like, energy money or, I don't know.
Well, for the, I mean, we can still explore that with the green energies, green communities, initiative, so we can do that. It's independent and exclusive of the charter or the vote on the ballot, so you can still nix those things, and, you know, we'll work with the school department to see if there's some other way to fund it. I don't think there is, but if there is, we'll see if we can find it.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
I also have information if you guys want to talk about the reserve, the stabilization, special education.
Yeah, and I didn't really post that this evening.
Okay.
It's something that we can have for our group discussion.
Okay.
Thank you though, Dan.
Yeah.
It's inside the warrant though, Mr. Chairman, relative to that, so if we're gonna talk about the warrant, if he wants to speak to those two items, because I wanna bring you up to speed on what.
Well, then hang around.
The school committee should really be here for that discussion.
They should.
I think, I mean, cause they're the ones that gotta talk about defending it and, well, advocating for it. In my mind, it shouldn't be staff, it should be them.
All right, so why don't you hang out for a couple
Sure,
minutes?
I can
just
speak
in
if
case
there's
there's a
any-
question on it, because we're gonna be down to a time crunch.
If there's any questions on
If we
that.
pass it over on town meeting, that may be, we gotta get to one side.
Dan, when is the school committee meeting again, on the 9th?
Next Tuesday?
Next, all right, so that's the same night, that's the same night that they'll be signing. Because right now, when we look at the warrant, when we get there, it says, you know, sponsored, submitted by school committee. Because I wasn't clear on whether we were submitting it, Jay was gonna submit, or the committee was, so there has to be some coalescence around who submits that, or those two articles.
So we vote on this?
We don't need to.
We don't need to vote on this?
Vote on the debt exclusion?
Yeah.
No, there's no vote, because by default, you'll have
We'll have to do it on
a
the
warrant
ballot. Okay.
on the ballot. When you vote to sign the
Yeah.
ballot tonight,
Okay.
it won't be on there.
Okay.
Okay, which is good segue into the, item D, which is review and sign the town meeting and election warrant. So Tim spent some time breaking this apart for us.
So, I don't know what version you guys got, because we worked on this over the weekend. Generally, since 2010, we've merged the election warrant with the town meeting warrant. So it usually reads greetings and the name of the town, and it has all the questions for the ballot, and then we go into town meeting. It calls out the date, location, and time of both meetings and the election. For the purposes that we're notified by the clerk today, that ballot warrant needs to go to her by 5 o'clock on the 10th. We read it at 7 o'clock, so there's no way I can meet that deadline. So you will be asked to vote on that warrant ballot tonight, which will be separate from the town meeting ballot. So the special and the annual can both be voted on and signed on the 10th. So my goal tonight was to take you through those non-routine articles, because they are pretty lengthy, so I thought I would run through the annual first.
Join the club.
And then the special, and then the ballot, because that's the thing you really need to take action on. So can I do it in that order?
Question, when do I have to read the notice then for public meeting? Special town meeting?
That was already published. We,
Oh,
as
okay,
an
you don't need me
administrative
to-
task, we put it in the paper and opened the
Okay,
warrant.
so you don't need me to read it?
Nope.
All right.
So I'll start with the annual. I don't know what copies they have, Nicole, so do I know they have this most recent copy?
So I just sent a link to everybody's email for the updated version of the warrants, or the packet with the updated, and it is what you have in your,
Send us an updated version of our packet?
yes,
When?
Just now, right?
a few minutes ago. So in your email, I don't know if you have,
Becca, can you put this up on?
it's also on the
Yeah, I can put it
website,
up, yeah.
relinked to that same.
And then
so
we
if you're
all
on
can
the
follow
website,
along
you can
anyway,
go
so.
to the meeting packets page and just click on the date, and it says updated. Next to it.
I got it.
We're gonna put it up on the screen as well, because I'll show you there's a couple modifications, unless you've already deleted the election off of the annual.
For us too. I'm along with you here.
It is, yeah, it's.
So we have to vote on that
They're
part of the
separated.
warrant?
There's the ballot
We just have to
separate
vote
from
on
the
the warrant
annual,
itself.
separate from
All of
this
this?
special town meeting.
Yeah, we're gonna go through.
But no Don't you normally have Ray here and everybody here, like all of everything?
No. This is just our sole responsibility, is just to set the warrant, and then when we come to dictate motions and things of that nature, that's when we divvy it up. This is just the article, it's not necessarily the motion.
Okay.
I'm gonna let her pull it up.
And that's what's on the website and
Well, there's a good deal on here, I just like, still have 6 people out there in the audience.
So the left-hand side is numeric, just so if you have a line that you have a question about, we can easily track it, so that's just a way to cheat a little bit. Article 1, so town meeting obviously is on the 7th of May at 7 o'clock, or 7:30 for the annual, 7 for the special. The first article, I'm just gonna, when I need to stop, I'll just cover it. But basically, you're gonna hear reports from any boards or committees in Article 1. You're gonna appoint a trustee for Nelson Park Memorial. You're gonna vote on the town's share of the Blackstone Valley debt. That number is actually in there because we know that number.
Town meeting is May 14th.
Oh, okay, thanks. I was like, that's kind of early.
Yeah.
In the election,
The election is 15th.
Monday, Tuesday. Sorry, all right, thank you. Then 4, these are, routine, right? Blackstone Valley principal and interest. 19 is the budget. Article 5 is the fiscal 19 budget. Article 12 is a typo, so I missed that today. I apologize for that. So the numerics will change. You're not signing this tonight, so you don't have to worry about that, but I wanted you to take through what's on there. Transportation bond bill, that's chapter 90, you've always done that. Enter into contracts to spend that chapter 90 money is the next article. Revolving accounts, under the new Municipal Modernization Act, we have to establish a bylaw relative to revolving funds, so that's what this article does. I don't know, can you elaborate briefly on what Ginny told you today about these?
Yeah, so there's a general bylaw that's created to establish the revolving funds. Once they're established by bylaw, you don't have to reestablish them unless you're adding new ones. And then every year you have to reauthorize spending limits for every authorized revolving account. So you'll see 2 back-to-back articles related to the revolving accounts.
So these are money that's taken in from various things, from council on aging, school department. A lot of these we've already done and have been in place, and they would be a reauthorization, but because we have to create the bylaw under the Modernization Act, that's why we have to do it this way. So it looks a lot longer than it is. The article, I don't know what article it would be now, the MSB school project appropriation, that would be deleted. Special Education Stabilization Fund would be created under what was Article 10, and then the transfer of special education dollars into that fund is Article 10 and 11. Is it actually 10 and 11 on there? So I don't know if you want to talk about the particulars of that, because I know Bruce has worked hard on it with Dan. Did Dan leave?
Yeah, Dan just took a phone call outside, so we can come back to this if you want to get through the rest.
All right. So those need some discussion. Fire department, standard article, authorize treasurer collector to borrow money from time to time, standard article, gives the treasurer collector authority to do that. Unemployment compensation, we have an estimated number of 145,000, which will be raised and appropriate. What did I miss?
Cable studio. I think it's at the bottom of the
sorry.
cutoff.
So this needs a little bit of explanation, even though we talked about this at length. We want to rehab the old police station to make it the new Grafton Cable Studio, the old police station right in front of this building. Estimated construction cost for that is $1.1 million. The cable fund has about $722,000 in it. So when we did the study, and we've been before the board with how that'll be renovated, we want to be authorized to borrow $500,000 inside the levy limit, but using the franchise cable fees to pay the debt service. So that's the thing. We pledge the full faith and credit of the community to pay the debt, but we would use the franchise fees that we get from both Verizon and Charter to pay the debt service. So it's not a debt exclusion. It just needs 2/3 majority to allow us to borrow for it.
So in a similar fashion to CPC funds being used for a debt exclusion for Pell Farm. Kind of the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to frame a reference for somebody
I don't
who's
think people.
new to how we've done some of these funding sources.
So you still need 2/3 majority to allow them to borrow for that purpose. But the funding source will be the fees from cable franchise, which we would do a 5-year return to match the term of the license, and the revenue stream from those fees is adequate to both do the day-to-day operations of cable and provide transparency for the local government and rebuild the studio and take them from South Grafton to the campus of the municipal center here at 30 Providence Road. Any questions on that? You're
All set with anybody else?
Transportation, RTA's typical or redundant or routine, I should say. Sale of surplus property, routine. CPC articles are routine, so 19, 20, 21, CPC, it's routine. Joe Layden might speak to this one for 23 Institute Roads Recreation Trail Feasibility. CPC has authorized to spend $14,000 on a trail behind the North Grafton Elementary School. So I don't know, Joe, right there. You want to talk about this one?
Sure. Just very briefly, if the board wants.
Very briefly, please.
Okay. Basically, a feasibility study to design and cost out a trail from the backside of North Grafton Elementary School to the Village at Institute subdivision, where we have an easement and strip of land that was approved as part of that project. It would eventually connect through and provide a trail connection out to the commuter rail as the rest of Route 30 develops.
Thank you.
Just for the feasibility study?
I know, this isn't something like I know the Eagle Scouts have taken on projects like this before to lay out trails, and they did a big one off of Milford Road. That was
I think what separates this as far as just like doing routine trail maintenance is that because of the propane facility, emergency management has also identified the need for a alternative evacuation route. This path would be wide enough, constructed large enough that then not only would it provide for recreation trail that then would allow for that connection, but then also could be used to facilitate that evacuation out from North Grafton Elementary. So that's where it's a little bit more than just, say, getting a couple of guys on and ladies on the weekend just to trailblaze some trails. It requires a little bit more effort.
This isn't trailblazer, this is just to do a study.
Right, but
So it's
there's
14 grand
wetlands.
Just do a study?
There's wetlands, there's some survey work, there's field investigation, there's then development of the plans, cost estimate and all.
But design of the actual trail that'll go 2 miles out to East Street, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a direct connection that was incorporated into the design of the Village at Institute subdivision.
So would there be a design, or would this be a study? What would they
This
get?
would be the design. This would be a design. It's a feasibility study and also a cost estimate would be one of the end products, so that then we know what the final cost would be for construction, permitting, and all of that.
All right, so when that contract comes to you, even though it's CPC money, you'll just have to make sure that the people who are providing the service are gonna give you a design.
What's usually percentage of design to?
10%, generally speaking, but it doesn't always hold true.
But sometimes it ends up being 3 times as much.
Yeah, well, you take the light design for Route 30 and that corridor for the timing of those lights, more in engineering than I did on the work to get them to synchronize.
Yeah, that's different.
So just odd stuff. Fire department retirement account, it's routine. Fire hydrants, we have 3 for Grafton Water District, that's routine. Zoning amendments, Joe can speak to this. I'll just tell you, Nicole, these need to be caps to be consistent with every other one that's there. It's a note I have now, but, so Joe, will you talk about 26 proposed amendment to Grafton zoning bylaw?
Basically, these next few are some minor changes, as the board had stated for special town meeting. Once the draft regs were finalized from the Cannabis Control Commission, we knew we'd have to come back with some minor changes. The first article, 26, just has to deal with modifying definitions that are already adopted within the bylaw, as well as adopting some new ones to reflect changes in the CCC final regs that were published. The second article, 27, deals with identifying some of those new use categories that the CCC regs had identified, and stating that they're special permit uses within the industrial and office light industrial districts. Those uses being marijuana microbusiness, marijuana research facility, standards testing lab, and marijuana transporter. Article 29 is a proposed new article that deals with shared parking. The existing village mixed-use district has a provision where uses that are complementary, where parking is occurs at different peak hours, can be shared. The current bylaw under section 4.2.5 does not have such a provision, so we were proposing to take and copy out of the village mixed use, put it into section 4.2.5, the shared parking provision to give the planning board, through issuing a special permit, additional flexibility in accommodating parking.
Joe, on A, just the reciprocal agreement, what if it's public parking and not, ABC store and XYZ store? If it's counting public parking, does that matter?
So that's one of the things that the planning board and I have discussed as far as trying to come up with a different way of addressing available public parking spaces, because no business can assign public parking to their business. Namely that if Shop A had excess parking that Shop B wanted to be able to use, you can have an agreement between the two that they share those parking spaces. With public, there would be many more businesses that then, say, would be able to take advantage of those public spaces and wouldn't be able to sign such an agreement. So we're trying to think as far as how to handle areas where there's a good amount of public parking, like around the common, maybe a little differently, and change the zoning district up.
All right, but that's not addressed in here.
No, it is not.
Either way, Tim, and these are planning board articles, we're not gonna kick off the planning board articles. So if they need to be on the special, we can discuss this when the planning board does their review.
All right.
I mean, they were submitted by planning board.
Yeah, we're just signing the warrant. I mean, we can discuss this when we get to a future point. They want it on the warrant. There's no reason for us to not have it on the warrant. That's a planning board submission. I don't think they can take it off, so.
And the last article, Article 30, is just about deleting references to number of copies and just stating that we're going to identify number of copies with an application on the application forms.
Thank you. This is going to be a very long special town meeting.
This will be the annual.
This is the annual. This is the 7:30.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, I'm backing up then. Fine. We spent a lot of time with planning board articles, and I got nervous. So.
All right, can I run through the special? Can you pull that up? So May 14th, this will start at 7. We'll adjust the FY18 budget. We'll adjust, these are routine as well. Snow and ice, right now it's 230,000 or 239,000 deficit. Prior year bills, standing article, FY18 unemployment liability. When we get closer to town meeting, we'll have a number of what that liability, because we pay as we lay people off or not, we are self-insured for that, so that's a standing article as well. Sick and vacation buyback, standard article. 7, the assessors vision software system, because we've had transition and other reasons. Vision is the group that's providing the new software conversion. They have a version 8 that we didn't know about when we signed the contract. So we think we want to be on the cutting edge when we open that box and not be a year from now having to reinstall software to update those things, so we just wanna do that now. So that'll require, I think, $8,000. So we'll be looking for 8,000 to get that system to the version 8, where it should have been if we didn't have any delays with transitions in the office. 20 Blanchard Road, this is not standard. It's a small piece of land. We don't have a map of it with us if we could find it. A long time ago, I'm gonna say McGill, Leclerc gave it to the town for $1. There's no use for it, but the gentleman who lives there maintains it. So he's asked us in a letter that if he could get it, and we said, how do we do that? We have to go to town meeting to be authorized to declare it. You'll declare it surplus at a meeting before town meeting, and then they'll vote to authorize to sell it. I put a number of not less than $500, but.
How much land is it?
0.15 acres. The field card has,
0.15?
yeah,
0.15 acres.
and its value right now is $1,200.
So why did he give us his land?
I don't know.
Probably.
He didn't wanna pay taxes on it.
Right.
It was useless to him.
Bob
At
Mulvey.
Mulvey's house?
Mulvey, yeah.
Yeah.
Bob Mulvey.
I think 'cause his frontage is in the back. He came to it somehow through the back.
So that's on there for that purpose. We can discuss it more, or have him in, or. There's a public process we have to go through to sell the parcel.
Is he gonna be able to subdivide the property if he buys that?
Joe?
It gets close. So the existing house, depending on how you angled it, it is a potential.
Well, we could
So he's
deed
gonna get a
restrict it in
building
the
lot
sale.
out of it.
Can put
Well, we can
restrictions.
deed restrict it
Yeah.
in the sale.
Okay.
If that was the goal of the board. I mean, he told us he just wants to own it to maintain it.
He's not always gonna own that property though.
Yeah.
So.
No, I know, that's why you would deed restrict it now.
All right. That's fine, just as long as it's on the table, we'll get to that in a month.
Nothing against the building lot, but price could change.
Revolving account, spending limit. Becky, you wanna talk about this one?
So the Board of Health is doing a major shingles vaccine event this spring. They had a little bit extra money in the vaccine revolving account that they got from the state. Last year, we only authorized them to spend up to $10,000. This event will cost about $14,000, so we need to up the authorization in special town meetings so that they can have the event.
They're not town funds or tax dollars,
No.
but you still need authorization to spend up to a total. CPC for 9 and 10 are standard, 11 is the standing article. And that's it for special.
Right, so, for the Creeper Hill property, wouldn't we wanna have to do that in the special town meeting if we wanna authorize funds to purchase it? Where are we at with that particular piece?
We're gonna meet with the gentleman because we still think we have a possibility to do a normal subdivision. He's actually acquired another piece to align it, so he could do 7 houses. So we're gonna have that discussion this week, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, but if that falls through and we can't do that, we still would have to have a town meeting to authorize funding to be within the
Yeah.
days for the right of first
Yeah,
refusal.
no, I should
So
definitely.
whether we
add it on.
placehold it or not, we need a
Yeah.
couple articles there that allow us to go through those motions.
Yep.
Well, no offense, I don't know what it is, but the guy he could put in, 140B units too, like Saltier did,
Yeah, well, we
next
covered
door
that
and
last
down the
meeting.
street.
Yep.
So, I mean.
We have no authority to put a deed restriction on it, or we would just be entering into some type of agreement. It'd be pretty convoluted. So,
What's our other one off of North Street?
and if we are going to do that, the idea floated from the Affordable Housing Trust to provide funds for this and the sale of Hudson. Can that be accomplished in this amount of time from now until town meeting? Can we have the market analysis completed and A&R done for the Hudson Ave property of which they want to have developed and be able to have that before town meeting as well in the spring?
It's possible, and we have to. How far along are they with that?
I mean, we wouldn't be able to have an A&R done. We'd have to, the trust would have to immediately retain a surveyor to start going out there and doing that work. And
And then that's fine.
doing market analysis. We've sent off the material to Mass Housing Partnership. It's conceivable that something could be coming in right on the heels of, or right on the sort of the nose of town meeting, but not with a lot of time for consideration.
Well, I mean, we could do a placeholder for it if the board wishes.
I would, because I don't wanna, there's like-minded things. For, like I mentioned in the meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust is just it's moving stuff across the ledger. It's going from a cash position to a land position, so on their perspective, it shouldn't really be that. Matter of fact, it's more valuable as land than it is than the cash that's sitting in the bank now anyways. And Creeper Hill is gonna be 400K, plus whatever expenses are incurred for us going through this process, things of that nature. So at the very least, being able to say, we wanna purchase Creeper Hill, this is the funds we wanna use for it, this is our overall goal. If that can't be accomplished in this, then we have to come back and do a special town meeting, which I of course can't authorize by myself, but if it's a simple matter of placeholders and trying to get the work done, or we can't get it done in time, we'll go another route. So, but
No,
I'd like to have something in my hand to offer the town to buy that property.
All right, we'll add both of those,
And then
or all three actually, because there's the one on North Street as well.
and I understand we can talk about funding sources later, but
Yeah.
however many articles we need in there to cover that frame of transactions, whether it's 3 or 4 or what have you. So,
Okay, so the ballot, the thing that you have to take action on so Candy can get it printed in time for the election. So this is a different warrant, used to be merged with the town meeting warrant, like I said before. So it'll contain, you know, the races that are up for Board of Selectmen, School Committee, Town Clerk, Board of Library Trustees, Housing Authority. And then it'll contain ballot questions. It will not contain the ballot question relative to the Proposition 2.5 exclusion for the elementary school. So question 1 would go away. We'll have to edit this now so they can print and sign it when they vote on it, if they do vote on it. So question 2.
well, you need this before we meet again, so you need this on the 10th, right? By 5?
Yeah.
So we're not gonna meet at 4:30, so whatever edits and whatever draft you can get us will.
It's just the last page, right? Can you just,
Yeah, as long as the motion contains that it's, that you vote it
Yeah.
the way
to exclude?
we've read it, you would just have
That's fine.
question 2, shall the town approve charter amendments? That's all we need to do. So all these questions 2 through, is it 7? 9. Have been with Ginny Kramer, the town clerk, and the Attorney General's office. We are required to give what the town shall approve, a yes or no vote, and then a summary of the article. We're also required, on the 10th of April, we have to do a mailing to all residents. Is it not?
2 weeks before town meeting.
2 weeks before town meeting, so we'll probably do it 3 weeks before, just to make sure we get it out there. But we have to mail out a summary of the questions to every registered voter in town. So that's kind of the timing issue as well.
Okay.
So 2 is basically capitalization, things we talked about at town meeting in October. Typographical errors, whether it be capitalization or the misstatement of there shall be no school committee, that would be voted on and eliminated and corrected. 3, more capitalization errors relative to the appointment of who the Board of Selectmen appoints. We didn't change who the board appoints, but we just clarified it in one document at the back. 5, clarifies without substantive changes to charter language relative to the Finance Committee's duties and responsibilities. 6 is clarification again, Board of Soil Commissions, which the town administrator appoints, so that clarifies that question. And all these were voted by town meeting, and that's why they could go to the ballot. 7, local newspaper, just being consistent with the state law in terms of giving 48 hours notice for a public hearing. 8, clarifying list of appointments made by both the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator. And it also eliminates the transitional provision that was left over from 1986, when they adopted the first charter. And 9, the charter amendment for Article 12, relative to the town administrator's references for a salary, statements of experience and education for the position. So that Article 9 deals with that particular question. So this will be how the questions are laid out, with the little ovals that people will mark yes or no, and we'll do the mailing to every registered voter in Grafton with the same information.
So, do you want to, we just have a motion to amend it, what's before us? Or do you want them to print off a whole new sheet?
Yeah, we can, if we delete that and print it, you can say as presented, and then you can sign it without that first article. I don't know who on staff is gonna delete that first section, because we gotta keep everything else, we just wanna get rid of
Yeah, we're
question
gonna
one
reorder the
and
question.
Renumerate every other one.
All right.
Well, that was neat.
So then
Why don't
let's
you-
let's do that.
Why don't you work on just making and.
I don't need to do this in front of everyone. Right?
Yeah,
That's fine.
no problem.
Dan, why don't you come up for a
No,
minute?
I must see your process.
Articles of the normal town meeting, articles, I believe 12 and 13.
Are we gonna vote on this first, or no?
Do you want to do the ballot?
Well, weren't we just talking about?
She was just going to make some corrections,
Oh,
and then we were
okay.
going to do it as presented.
Oh, okay.
But we have two particular things, and Dan just wasn't in the room at the time, so.
Okay.
This is something that, Dan, why don't you come up? Dan, Dr. Cummings, chairman of the school committee, myself, Tim. Last year, we passed over this particular article. This year, they asked to put it on again. Like most anything, funding sources, kind of our end of it. I want to use stabilization funds to fund it. The revolving account. Dan can talk briefly about what it's used for and it's kind of the ramifications of it. Essentially their need for it.
Yeah.
And we could talk about funding.
Time out. I thought we talked about this, the school committee's not here to talk about this article. So we should not have the discussion, to me, without them being here. This is about for the special needs account?
Well, it is. No, they have one particular piece of the article. The other one is a funding source, and I don't feel it's the school committee's role to have a funding source. I think the funding source should be us. And they can ask for something, but I would prefer it come from us. If that's different, then we'll wait. We'll just keep these on as placeholders, and we'll wait till we have the meeting with them, and Dan can go home.
So this discussion is for the funding source.
The funding source, yes. But he's going to give you the background on the revolving accounts and how it can be used, because they kind of blend together.
The revolving accounts, I guess I don't understand what we're talking about.
So just give them like 2 minutes to go through kind of what this is, and then and what they use it for.
I can just give you a brief overview, and maybe the
That's
school
right.
committee can expand on it. But this is a new law, a kind of new.
Because it's not, I'm sorry, Dan, this isn't even on our agenda. I know it's a warrant article, but we're not talking about every warrant article. We're not having an open public discussion on these warrant articles. So I don't think we should be having the discussion. That's just me. I don't think
As
it's
long as they're
appropriate.
on there as placeholders, that's fine. I don't care. Because we can't go back, we can't revisit the warrant after we speak with them. So we're kind of at an impasse as far as what we can have. I mean, we've had it on there before and passed it over on town meeting, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue just to wait to talk to the school committee when we have our joint meeting and we can go through it. We can adjust the motion on town meeting floor for a funding source anyways, so if that's the case, then Dan, I'm sorry I kept you for this long. Does anybody
That's
else?
just me. I mean, that's just me. I just think the school committee should be part, they want additional
Well, I mean,
money
just like we did
to
with the
be
planning.
on another account.
We'll have the planning board in here to review the articles.
To
We
me,
can have
they
the school committee in
we
here
need to
review
talk
the
about the main budget for the school department, not additional funds for the school department. We need to know where the 1.8 million is going this year. That's my concern, not additional money to set them up with another account. So, I'm not for this at all. And to me, the school committee has to come in and justify the money that they're spending currently, not additional funds. That's just me. I don't know where you guys stand on it, but
particularly think as an instrument for what we can use for some of the immediate concerns that the school department has in their budget, I think it's a good tool to have in our arsenal to take care of budgetary needs that are definitely going to impact the town. So, but if you want to wait to talk about it, we'll wait.
I think they should be here.
Does
That's
anybody
just
else-
me. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about it.
We will wait then. Dan, I apologize for having you here for this long. You'll be back next week anyways, and we'll talk about it then. All right, so we have special town meeting,
Sign them all.
Alright.
Seven.
and we have the new draft for the ballot that we can sign. Does anybody have any other questions on the warrant? And we don't need to sign this tonight, right?
The warrant for the
The warrant.
election, yes.
The election we have to do, that's what you're passing out now.
Yep, nothing else.
Don't have to sign off on everything else until next week, so,
So should we, you ready for a motion for the ballot?
yeah, he's passing it on it.
One sheet for each is fine. I mean, we're gonna sign them all, but if you wanna read them in the order.
Sure, you didn't throw anything in last minute, did you? All right,
It'll be voted down at town meeting if she did.
true enough. All right. 1 through 8, is everybody happy with this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all charter stuff, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll make a motion to sign the annual town election warrant as presented by the town administrator's office staff.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just to avoid the confusion, maybe we just pass them all down to Jen and just sign them all for them.
Yep.
So we don't lose one. There you go, you can see yourself when it gets back down, yeah. All right, does anybody else have any additions they wanna make to special town meeting warrants or the annual town meeting warrants? Now's the time. Okay, so you'll put those together and we'll have those at the next meeting
For
and
the
we
10th,
can
yes.
declare, okay. So,
Tim, real quick, just, we have a feasibility study going out for Worcester Street, right? For the sidewalks and like all that?
No, not a feasibility study. We did a right of way for Snow to Carroll. So that's laid out and I forget, you catch me kinda cold. I don't
Sorry.
know what the next step is on that process for that
Okay.
task force.
But nothing that we could get done in the next, 2 months for this.
No, I mean, you couldn't allocate funding. If you were gonna allocate any funding, you'd use chapter 90, but it is a state road, so it's your decision to do that. There would be no town meeting action for that road to be
Okay. Sorry.
looked at or studied.
why don't you segue into the TA report for that?
Okay. On the 10th, you'll sign the annual town meeting warrant and the special town meeting warrant. On the 17th, we'll do a couple things. I will not be here, however, so Becca will be in charge. We will look to sign an IMA with the city of Worcester for the Health Alliance. It will be a 3-year deal, and the Alliance will be here for question and answer. I did send it to the Board of Health for their comments ahead of time. We are obviously recommending that we do that, and they will also, under this deal, be doing Title V for us, so there'll be no internal review of that. Based on Paul's assessment and recommendation to me and to the Board of Health, we increased some fees in the Board of Health to cover those costs, but the staff, with Brian doing those soil and septic design plan review, it takes away from the work he does in the field relative to fixing roads. So that's a better use of his time, so that's why we want the Alliance to do all of the Title V work, which they do in other communities as well. We stripped it out, thinking we would save money. At the end of the day, the money we raise is about the same as the increase. I think it's between $23,000 raised to $25,000 that we would spend. So to get that turnaround more quickly, the Alliance, I think, is important. So that'll happen on the 17th. The other thing is the electric aggregation, they'll have a indicative pricing for the next go-around for 12, 24, 18 months, however. So Marlene or Pat will be back in from Paragon Energy. They were here 12 months ago when we signed up for the energy. I want to do that again. The only caveat to that is last time we did it, we could have had a 0.5% adder for sustainability-related projects. I'd like to add that in this time. When we first did it, we wanted to make sure we're gonna save people as much money as possible, so we didn't have it. But there are things, especially with the money we get from green communities, if we can augment this 5% adder, we can augment those sustainability projects and do more things without impacting the tax rate, like those windows or whatever. So I wanna add that into it. So that plan's been updated with that piece in it. But you would go into executive session to review those indicative prices, because you don't want the competitors to know what everybody else has bid. You are allowed to do that under the law. And then at that point, you would, probably vote to authorize, and they'll walk you through this, the town administrator to be able to sign. I'm not sure, I think Craig was in the room when I actually signed it last time. You were chair at the time when we signed it. Knowing that there was parameters, right? You said if it's this high per kilowatt, don't do it. If it's this low, you can do it. So you might set those same parameters in executive session next week. These boards over here, a lot of work from EDC and from staff. Joe, we're going to a chamber event tomorrow to promote the development opportunities in Grafton. So all the work is just kind of a roll-up on these reader boards that both Joe Layden, I'll be there for a little while, and John Allen will be at this event for the Corridor 9 event, promoting these particular sites for redevelopment in Grafton. So that's what those are there for. If you didn't see him when he came in, it codifies all the reasons why people should choose Grafton for business opportunities, from zoning, unified tax rate, or unitary tax rate, I should say, and proximity to major highway. So they're good boards. They're a lot of work throughout the years, but now we just finally have them codified in one place that displays the strength of our position in the market for economic development. So that's what those are there for, and that's what we're doing tomorrow. So we're hitting the ground running with our new economic development coordinator.
Excellent.
And that is the extent of my report.
Brilliant. Any selectmen's reports out there? Okay. Any correspondence from anywhere?
I have none.
All right. I'm just going to flip around a quick discussion item piece, seeing that Mr. Berger's been waiting a little while out there. Why don't you come up, please? Sit, stand, whatever you're more comfortable with. This is Mr. Yeoman sent us correspondence a while back about surrounding towns and what they bill for fees in their particular departments that assess those things. And wanted us to take a look at our fees, which I believe 4 years ago we did increase the fees. Was it 3 or 4 years ago?
July 2015.
So,
And good evening, Board of Selectmen. I have 4 documents that I would like to just walk through. Everybody has them?
Not yet.
we're past that.
Okay. So let me just go through these 4 documents. Page 1, I'm kind of breaking down fiscal year 17, 18, and projecting 19. If you go down to the bottom of the page, you see that what we bring in for 17 is $209,000. We added the overhead of 35%, which is our benefits, the light and the heat to maintain the building. So our bottom line of what we need to sustain our department in 17 is 282, 18 is 310, and 19 we're projecting 309. So that's what this document is just showing right now. Flip the page.
Can I just, these columns, these rows are all extracted from the budget, so I just had them subtotal them down across the bottom. The 35%,
I gotcha.
generally speaking, is what, when we apply for a grant, we always put in a number for overhead and benefits, and overhead, we use 30 to 35%, depending on what the granting institution will allow us to get away with. So we use the higher of the two in terms of our total cost estimate. But anyway, so those are your total appropriated balances for 17, 18, and what we're looking at for 19 if town meeting were to approve it. And then we're adding that 35%, which is scattered throughout the rest of the budget. So I just had them roll them into one.
I just wanted to give the board an idea of what it costs to run that department, okay? So page 2, back in 2015, when we do a cost estimate on what it costs for new construction, we adopted the ICC building valuation data, and you can see at the bottom of the page, it says R3 highlighted, 1 and 2 family. And this changes every 6 months, so in February, it went up to $118.45 per square foot. That's just to build the house. Any questions on that? No. So we go to page 3, and in 2015, this board authorized your cost to be $5 per thousand. I gave you 2 spreadsheets here, and they're both discussing a 2,500 square foot house, which is the average house that people are building these days right now. And you can see for $5 per thousand, you're about $1,900 right now for your at $10 per thousand, you're $39.78. So that's your new construction right there.
But right now, we're at $5 per thousand.
We're at $5
not
per
10.
thousand. We're at the upper of page 3. That would be your permit fee is $19.89. If we go to the 10, we're at $39.78 for the 2,500 square foot house.
And these are all new construction.
This is all new construction cost. So page 4, and there is a mistake on page 4. You have 2 2017 columns. I don't know how that happened. But this is a cost breakdown for your calendar years of what we brought in from 2013 to 2017. And in 2014, that was the start of our big ground mount solars. That's why we had a big boost that year. And then our increase was July of 2015. And then we started gaining what we were looking for, was that $300 and something thousand a year to sustain our needs. If you go back up to the left-hand side of this page, I did look at a couple of the surrounding towns. And of course, Grafton is $5 per thousand residential, $7 per thousand for commercial solar. For commercial solar, we're $7. But 5 is the same for residential or commercial.
Did you just hit an extra 0 on here? Because it looks like it says 10,000.
I did hit an extra 0.
All right.
Sutton is $6, Millbury is $8, and Northborough is $10. So that's the report that I want to give to the Board of Selectmen, and I can answer any questions that you wish.
Okay, so since we did this in 2015, we essentially tied off the building department's budget in permit fees.
Yes.
Okay, so the request was to increase that further as, I don't know if it's just to increase revenue through general receipts for the town or whatnot. We did it in 2015. I see no reason to do it again right now, especially if the department is self-sufficient. And my reasoning for that is a couple-fold. For one, it's expensive already to have permitting done. For 2, if you're doing something, we're going to get you on an assessed value on that particular property, and we're going to tax you for it anyways. I think as long as it pays for the services, because if we run down this model and we're trying to make money on these type of things, which I can understand the approach, we should be doing the same thing with rec. We should be doing the same thing with all the other places across town if this is an actual revenue model type of thing, instead of just providing sufficient offset for the general funds. But I don't. Do you feel the need that over the next couple of years you're going to start to have a deficit?
I can't answer that question. I gave you an evaluation from 2013 to 2017.
All right.
It depends on permits. If what holds true for this woman who was here earlier about housing, permits for new housing going down, that number's gonna go down, and there will be a sustainability issue, and you may have to increase fees to get to that number. But since Bill, I don't know what Bill's motivation was, he wrote a long email to it, but we had to base it on some fact and reality, and 305 seems to be our cost, and as long as our permit numbers stay at the same level, we'll maintain that. If they drop off, then you'll be below it.
she said there was gonna be a dip in the growth, but not necessarily. It's
Well, you're running out of
growth is
building
gonna
lots,
be-
right?
Oh,
You-
of
Yeah, like,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, but you charge a fee to do a porch, to do a sunroom, to do an
We do,
addition.
we do. We charge for every permit, there's a fee associated with it. And, you know, what we never want to happen is we never want to underfund or have less revenues come in than we need, because we never want this to come out of the general fund. So I've said this before, so your neighbor out of their property taxes is paying for your inspection. So when that time does come, then we're gonna have a problem that we are probably gonna have to go up.
Well, reading Bill's letter, I thought he made some pretty valid points and he had some pretty good recommendations. And Bob, I don't know if you agree with kind of his analysis. I think he had it right. To Bruce's point, permits are expensive, right? Especially if you're doing a small project, it's a high percentage of the overall project. But new construction is something that I think that should be a winner for the town. In the scope of the project, it's not a lot of money percentage-wise. I look at the building permits, 1 year, it was 106,000, and then it was another year, it was 191. That's a big swing. Just building permits alone and revenue, so I think we need to build in a cushion for years that we're down, so that the department is sustained by the work that you do and the permits that you issue. So to me, and it looks like we're behind these other towns.
I'm,
And you used to come all the time. You used to come here all the time.
And I used to get rejected all the time.
You did get rejected a lot. Once in a while you'd slip one by the goalie and we'd raise fees, right? But
Yep.
you used to come consistently,
2014, 2013, I started to get out of the fee structure.
But
And
it's
then
been
we got
3
into
years.
we got into this one.
Right.
This one seems to be working. I am the will of this board. If this board doesn't like $5 per thousand, then we could go $6 per thousand, and we could match Sutton. Right now, we are the lowest community around right now. At the 5, we are at the lowest. You want to go? You want to try 6? We can try 6. It's
Well, yeah,
whatever.
Northborough is double. I'm not saying we should go there, but that shows you how.
Well, Northborough actually, they do a lot in their building department because they have a lot of industrial, tucked away in their corner.
Yeah.
But I think Sutton and Millbury are kind of closer to us, meaning the bedroom community with the business that spreads out.
Yeah.
So I think if you wanted to try $6 and I come back in 6 to 8 months and we can revisit it, or we just leave it alone and I come back to 6 to 8 months. It's whatever this board wants me to do.
The other piece is we got a grant to buy software for permitting for all departments. There'll have to be
Which is
incremental fees.
it's gonna be a
Because I have
cost
a
to that.
maintenance contract for that software.
Right, exactly.
So that's not in these numbers, obviously.
No, and we'll figure whatever that delta is, and that should get tacked on to your building permit is, in the spreadsheet is this, plus for that permitting program, this is what it's gonna cost. Almost like a fuel charge when a service guy comes to your house.
That's coming on when it was there?
We're building, we're putting all those forms online, so I start
Is
getting
it 40?
charged in
Something
July.
like 30 something. What's the annual fee to run that program? It's like 30 or 40
I
grand?
think it's 35, 40 grand.
Say 40
It's in
grand.
In that realm.
But that's for planning, that's for building.
That's for all. So you
that's
can't
for
put all the
everything.
burden here, but that's where a lion's share of stuff
Right.
happens.
All right.
Now, Bill, he had a different, in his letter, he talked about new construction versus,
In
like
addition.
additions and decks and that kind of thing. I think his thing wasn't to whack that as much as the.
But we really don't do that. We have, new construction is new construction. So if you're gonna put on an addition, put on a deck, that's basically the same as putting up a house. What we do is we kind of subsidize the windows and the siding and the roofs, so we don't really hurt the homeowner that has to put that roof in, that has to put those windows in, and not charge them the $5 per thousand. We charge them like $50 for the inspection, because on some of those, you're only going out there once.
Right.
So I don't want to hit them for, a $300 permit or a $500
So
permit.
they're not included in this permit model. that if I was to make a recommendation to the board to go to 750 per thousand, those things are not in that number.
No, they are not in that
The
number.
roof, window, siding is not.
No,
part of the-
but getting to Craig's point, the additions are, the porches are, anything that's new construction is the $5 per thousand.
If you
It's a
put in a
flat rate.
$40,000 pool, you would be paying $10 per thousand of that $40,000 pool.
$10, $5, whatever number you're talking about,
So
yes.
you put in a new pool in town, this is the rate you're gonna set for it. So you put a barn out back, you put a.
Well, I'm gonna take that back. Pools, we don't do that. I'm sorry. We don't do that. I'm just thinking of the fees. Pools, we do per inspection. It's $50 per inspection. You get 3 inspections for a pool.
Can I just ask a question? I mean, I'm gonna take a different approach here. I think Bill's idea about $10 is on paper. It makes a lot of sense. You get more revenue and everything. But one thing that we have to bring to the table here is Bob's handling of that budget. I mean, we're at $300,000, and right now, every single year, we're bringing in almost roughly that number. It's being handled very, very well. And for $5, and he's making it work at $5. So if we're making it work, all things being equal, and there's no extra money that's needed to come in, why are we going to hurt the townspeople here or anybody coming in to try to do any new development in town when we're asking for it, we're craving it, where we need it in this town, and now we're going to hit them off with $7.50 or $6 or anything.
Craven new development.
Well, first of all,
Not housing.
Well, not housing, but
they're used
commercial.
to paying a lot more in neighboring
Yeah.
communities.
Sure. The lowest one
So
around.
we're the lowest one
Well,
around.
then let him
And-
come to us.
And if he has a year where he has less building permits,
Sure.
then he's gonna be in the red.
But let that
But they're
like.
not coming here or not coming here because of the building permit.
Well, again, look at if you're gonna build 30 houses and if you're gonna go to $10, like Bill's thing, that's
Well,
$2,000
so far,
extra. That's $60,000 off the top.
Right.
All right,
You think
and
that developer's paying that?
then he's gonna pass it on
right.
to
Well,
the buyers. Yeah.
That's right, and that's new construction. I don't know, that's a pittance to the 700 grand he's gonna get from the house. The extra $2,000. I don't think people are coming here or not coming here because of the permit fees. The question is, we're the lowest one around, so you're.
But my point
is
is that he's making it at the lowest. We're still making it not only work, that he's exceeding those numbers. So it's like, where's the problem here? I still don't understand what the problem is.
Is this, if this.
Like I haven't identified what the issue or the problem is with the $5.
We go to 10, you make $500,000 next year.
Then
with
what?
an Additional $200,000 on
Well,
local
no one's
receipts.
saying 10 to start. And
Well, that was Bill
Bob
then.
said well, that's Bill. Bob said 6. Tim said 750. Bill said 10.
Yeah, but 5 works.
We get to
5 for if we're taking this approach to our budget, then we gotta raise the fees on the rec
Okay,
department too.
and then look
because
at
we're
that.
subsidizing. I don't
But-
want to do that. I wanna just have it pay for itself and not charge people more money for putting on a porch
Yeah, well,
or a garage.
All right. Well, I mean, we only
Or a
have so much
windmill.
money in town. We can only get money so many places. People want money for the, school, or they want money for this. They want money for
but
that.
this money's
It's an
only going to be
opportunity.
used at the building department too. And
Well,
for
there's
the-
not,
That's a
there's
general
not a
sheet. It goes
direct
back to the
lineage
general fund.
between, we collect all money and then we distribute all money. There's
I don't see
no-
this as a heavy hit.
There's no direct connect. It's just part of general fund revenue that gets allocated. Don't make that number, he's still spending 300,000.
And to me, it's an
I don't think we're
opportunity,
whacking
especially on a new house, it's, chances are it's not a current resident. And we have a chance, we know what homes do. From a services perspective,
Yeah, I mean, hey, any house with 3
with
kids.
schools and
That's right.
roads
They're not
and
paying,
all
they're
that.
not, even if they're paying 12 grand a year, they're
Okay,
not paying
so-
for those 3 kids to go to school.
I would get behind this. You charge 10. I know we're not at 10. You charge 10, and then you tell me that what this money is actually going for. If we could decide on that, which we can't, because it goes into the general fund, it just gets lumped in. It's
Well,
just-
we could, go to, and do a lot more training in the West Coast. Well,
He could buy pens.
meetings in
Bob
July.
could
I
buy
wasn't
more
going-
pens.
I
Those
wasn't going
candies
there.
are pretty stale over there too.
well, then we'll go down south a little
Take
bit.
for example, the local receipts and stuff, they kind of fall out at the end of the budget cycle anyways, right? So if you were deciding we want to do capital expenditures, and we said and we said, I'm still talking, so you guys can have a motion all you want, but I'm gonna have to wait till I'm done talking to entertain.
We may never get there.
Yeah, well, that's,
I'm used to
I'm kidding. You can wait. Nobody's keeping you here. So, if you were to decide to take this money and actually apply it to something, then sure. But, I don't know, the budget's been balanced this year. There's money for this year, why are we introducing new taxes without having some type of spending policy wrapped around them? And this is a tax. If you wanna do business in town, you have to get a permit.
Well, Mr. Chair, it's not, it should not be a tax. It's not a tax because
It's a service.
it's a service.
I get that, but now we're going beyond the service model and we're making money off that service. So now it's a revenue. So it is a tax. If you make $350,000 and 50 goes back into the general, we don't give that back to the people and give them a refund on their permit. Say, oh wait, we took too much money this year. Here's a couple bucks back on the porch you just put in. That's not how it works. This
No, I
goes into
understand.
just a big fund and we spend out of that fund. That's all.
Well, chances are the school department's gonna get all the money anyway, so that should be a good thing, right? So we have this discussion, we've had it for years, whether it's this fee or another fee, or whatever it is. We always look at other towns' fees and we try and stay consistent. We try and stay somewhere in the middle, so we're not gouging people, but we're also not leaving a lot of money on the table. And I think that's fair. I think that's fair for our residents, and I think it's a fair approach to looking at fees or permits or whatever it is, you know. So to me, it seems like we're behind. I thought Bill had a good idea. Bob hasn't been here in a few years, and he used to come all the time. So I don't know what that means. Maybe he's sick of.
I dragged him here 'cause
He's
of
sick
Bill.
of getting beat up, but to me, I think we're low, and I think there's an opportunity to still be low, but capture some revenue in case we have a shortfall in permits a year, or to fund this new software, or to have some more money in the operating budget. We know we look for that money every year, so I think it's fair.
Is there a number that gets the additional 40K for the software? What's that number, do you think?
Joe's doing that analysis of what everybody, you know, it was like 60 cents for everybody, so it's not,
It's not a good.
Board of Health has to do something, Planning Board has to do something, ZBA has to do something, Berger has to do something, so it's not just, I don't have one. If it was $750, it covers it all, so.
But we're
Never
charging.
have to
You
worry.
really like that number,
If you get the
Seven for
$750,
commercial already.
you don't have to worry about, as long as
$750 for
as long as the
residential, and then how
permit
much
number
more
is
for
the same.
commercial? I mean, that's crazy.
As long as you get the same number of permits next year. you'll be-
We've been averaging the same amount of permits for the past.
And the reason why you haven't approached us is because you haven't had a need to raise your.
Yeah, you didn't even approach us with this, right? This came from.
This is us
from-
coming to you.
I was asked to come here,
Yeah, I get it.
and I
asked you to.
thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If I didn't say that.
All right, so, Brooke, you got that motion? You've been great.
Make a motion that we raise the fees to $7.
Second.
What fees, the residential?
Yeah.
And what about commercial?
Because
Want a separate
residential,
motion?
and commercial's already at 7.
It's both. It's both, because that $7 was for the solar. The first thing we did back before 2014 is we raised the solar fees because that's when it first came up.
Okay, so the motion is just to raise it to 7.
So it would be 7 across the board.
Seven across the board.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion passed. We have now reset the fees.
Thank you. Have a good night.
So Tim, now that we've reset the fees, we'll get an update when we get through the building season.
Yeah, just like
Yeah,
this, we can bring him back to it.
Okay. All right, funding a super park. Just to framework this, this was asked to be put on the agenda, so it's there for discussion about what we want to do. I believe there was multiple funding sources for the super park. Jen, you can can you bring us up to speed on where the money's at now?
I
and
can, but
which
just for the
locations?
record, I did not ask this to be on the agenda.
Yeah, that's fine, but it's on the agenda, and
Okay.
whichever, we've got to talk about it, I just want to make sure we all have the know where the money would be coming from as we get further
Okay,
into the conversation.
Town meeting appropriated, 280 approximately.
Yeah, 276 from overlay surplus.
And there was also 100,000 from community preservation, but that has been sunsetted. Because after we got the appropriations, there was a problem with the site, and also, as it turns out, the library parking lot needed the area that we're looking at. So we've been waiting for the library to finish their planning and make sure that their footprint and their parking is where it's going to be. So then we can look at that and determine a location. And then, so we're right, now that the library is moving forward, they have the OPM, and all those plans are done, we're starting to gear up again. And I am on CPC, and I have spoken to them, and they are still behind the project. Of course, we don't have any details, so the goal is to get them a very good plan, to look at it, bring it to town meeting for the additional funds with CPC. And if it passes, great. If it doesn't, then we won't move forward.
Okay, so currently in a warrant article is 274.
There's nothing in a warrant article.
Well, yeah,
There was an overlay.
when we voted the overlay out,
Right.
it went into an article for that purpose.
Okay.
So 276,444.
The 100K from CPC, that's sunset.
Sunsetted.
Yeah, so that's no longer money that's out there just playing on this particular project. So what we're really talking about is the 275 or whatever.
Right.
And so that would require us to go back to town meeting and close out that article?
Yeah, we would just reuse it. I mean, it might fit nicely for snow and ice if you really were looking for someplace, but, I don't know. But yeah, you could just vote it at town meeting as an available fund.
That being said, that's the framework. I'll step back and,
Just real quick, a question on that. The 276, was that allocated for a super park, or was that allocated for a super park at that library location?
Is at that location.
So specifically for that location. Okay, just wanted to clear that up.
So I asked this to be put on because I know we have that money sitting there. It's been sitting there for a couple of years, to Jen's point, waiting for the library to kind of come full circle. But I just look at all the needs that we have. Tim brought up one, snow and ice. We have fire equipment, we have capital expenditures. This money has been tied up, and I just thought it would, for me, I wanted to bring it to the board, at least to have a discussion to see if we still had an appetite for this project based on the money that we're spending on a new library, or a library addition, the money that we're spending on a new DPW facility, the capital items that we have on the list. Fire, I'm just thinking of fire specifically with that list that our consultant came up with. Stuff like snow and ice, just normal needs for this community. And I look at this, and and if the park happened, that would be okay, but maybe we should do it all through CPC. So A, it doesn't affect the taxpayer, and B, we can release that fund and spend it on some things that I feel like the community, especially, from a safety perspective, I look at our forestry equipment right now is not really where it used to be, because we had to take some trucks out of service and that kind of thing. So I thought it was worth having the discussion, whether we wanted to spend this amount of money on this project, given the projects that we've recently approved, the burden to the taxpayer, and that we have this money. It's been sitting in an account, and we haven't been utilizing it, and I think we have other things that, to me, should take priority. So I just wanted to bring it up and see how the board felt about it.
Just a point, CPC, there is money available, but typically they do not reward a grant without some matching funds. They won't pay for 100% of the project.
Well, they do a lot of projects.
Yeah.
Maybe not nothing this size, but they fund 100% of a lot of projects.
Typically, there's a
Yeah, there's always something that since I've been here, like even Pell, if we didn't have the state preservation grant, they wouldn't have.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like the
$1 million
last
bucks.
income stream for the project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even one Grafton Common, you had $1 million from the old high school that went to that before they.
Well, it meets the criteria, so, I mean, that's money that we have, and that's, you know,
So if we, just hypothetically speaking anyways, if we were to reclaim this money from a warrant article, would it have to be spent on something else, or do we just, because we've kind of taken out warrant articles before and used them to fund different things
Yeah, yeah.
and stuff like that, but if we had another project that we were looking to spend this on, and we decided to use funds from this to fund that particular project, aren't we kind of, that, whatever project that is, we're putting in direct competition to the people who voted for Super Park a few years ago? I mean, we wouldn't-
Yeah.
wouldn't
If you
we-
liquidated it for something, if you wanna put in stabilization or,
Wouldn't we want to go back and say, do we still want to do the super park? Is that what we're asking to do?
But what I'm saying is if now that the library is moving, now we're able to get a more accurate representative, like we're able to figure out exactly how much it's going to cost. So then we go through the process with CPC and request the amount of money we need, and then we go to town meeting with the whole packet. This is what we have, this is what we're asking from CPC. If town meeting says no, then we reallocate the money we have sitting there. But I don't think it's time to let that go before we get to ask town meeting one more time. And then we'll know if they still support the project or not. And if they do, great. If they
So
don't,
when's that, the
fine.
fall? So when's that, the fall?
Well, I gotta talk to Joe. We gotta figure out, like, we wanna make sure that we come with,
well, it's the location on the
accurate-
parcel is what the big
Right.
problem is, and we gotta know
Right.
where the library is sitting and where its parking lot is to know where your park would go.
right, not my park, the town park.
Hold up.
Well, they sorta, I mean, they kinda know where that stuff's going now.
But as it goes through planning, if it gets changed, then.
Yeah, I suppose, potentially. but-
to me, it's a massive amount of money. We could solve some capital issues. We'd be saving the town money. I look at it as a $274,000, $76,000 savings by taking that money and put it towards capital needs that we have. Let the CPC, if they want to fund the park, I just think it's a massive amount of money for a park too. But if CPC wants to fund it, let them fund it. And it's not going to cost the town, you know, it's not like we're gonna have to put a fire truck off another couple of years, or it's, you know, to me, it's a responsible thing to do.
But town meeting already voted to allocate that money.
I'm a parent with 2 kids. and
But
I-
it's hanging up though. I mean, we
I
get
think-
276 grand sitting in an account.
Yeah. Well, we have other money
No.
sitting
So
around as well.
just real quick, as a parent with 2 kids and having the library going up there, that's an asset to me and to my children in the future. And I think the park is going to be a great complement to the library. And so I want to make sure that if that can go there, that it does go there. And if we do have the money already in an account ready to go, and we can go back to the town and say, hey, it's going to cost X more dollars or whatever. Do we have an appetite to do it? Let's do it. I'm all in favor for that. I mean, whenever you come into money, I was always taught, like, you don't go spend it on you don't, throw it into a savings account. Don't pay off your credit card bills or whatever, because that stuff's just gonna come, we can
Well,
find
it's a
million
one-time
things.
Well, we just
But
spent $30
it's all
million in projects. You know what I mean? With the 2 projects that we've
Sure.
done, we spent $30 million.
But I just think
So-
we should see this one out
Well,
all
there's
the way.
a park a quarter mile up the road that we could add to.
True, but imagine you just have to
Well,
go
but
in
yeah,
one
we've been
parking
through
lot.
that. We've been through that already.
Yeah.
So that's so Jen, when the matching funds part, I mean, it doesn't have to be 50%.
No.
What's the matching fund part from CPC?
Well, there's.
Because I'm not totally with Greg with this whole thing, but I do think CPC needs to step up to the plate on this particular project. Looking at what they've funded in the last couple of years, I think they could have put money into this where they put money other places. So I would like to see them step up to the plate even more. But I guess to your question, if you need some skin in the game, I mean, do they need $276,000 in the game, or do they need $100 grand? Or I mean, there's got to be projects they've funded with zero money coming from somewhere else.
I don't know what the percentage is. There is no set percentage. Sometimes, the last park, 340,000 for
What was
this for this Stone Bridge Raise project.
So how much was that?
I think
funds were
they
not CPC.
they did a lot of, there's in-kind volunteer work there, there's,
Okay, but
I don't know,
all- yeah,
probably,
but you-
probably
But
like
you're
50.
gonna get in-kind volunteer work for your
Right,
park.
right, no, but,
So-
like 50, 60, I don't remember
Okay.
off the top of my head.
And-
I do
and-
understand, but
and-
we can't, you wanna split this, you wanna split the
No,
hair?
I want you to find out. Like, I think you could figure all this stuff by the fall.
Yeah,
So take your shot in the fall, and then if that's, if it fails,
Yeah,
I
then-
do think some of this money, again, CPC, if you look at the utility of that bridge, which is fine, and the amount of people who are gonna cross that bridge, the amount of people who are gonna use this park,
right,
if you go dollar for dollar, you can get a lot of money for this park, because there's not gonna be a lot of people crossing that bridge, even though I wanna see the bridge fixed. I think there's money to go around, so, take the time to go and see what they need to match, and take a shot at it in the fall, and if it fails, then you're gonna
Right.
lose it, and then maybe then it goes to a fire
right,
truck or something.
and that's all I'm saying is we
And
need
so-
I'd like that one
Yeah,
more chance
I
to
don't
see
think
the
Craig's
project
making a
through.
bad point, but I guess, to your point, the library's there now, it's gonna be less money, cause you got a parking lot being paid for by some other means. Get the ducks in a row and take one last shot for the fall, and then use it for a fire truck if it doesn't work out, or use it for something, and not so much, you can find the snow and ice somewhere else, because
I know, it was a nice round number.
Yeah, but that's
I'm
not,
sorry.
that's not worth taking that money to spend on snow and ice. It may be for a fire truck, or it may be for something else, but not for snow and ice.
I agree.
Okay, so I guess we'll push this off to the fall regardless. Okay. And that's an active pursuit that you guys are having now.
So the board, I guess, doesn't wanna take a position on it, wanna wait and see what happens, right?
Well, I'd rather wait till, I'm not gonna be here, but till the fall.
If you need a position now, this is something.
No, I'm just asking, just to bring closure to the discussion. Nobody wants to make a recommendation for
Okay,
a
so-
change. Which is fine.
I wouldn't want
I
to
wanted
put
to
it
bring
down
it to
now
discussion.
because we don't have anything that we're aligning. We've already set the capital. This would just be an additional 274. Could you find something? Sure, but I don't think you're gonna take this back from it now.
Which one do you want? You just raise the fees.
I know. I know. So
I'm trying to make money.
I get that. Just tell me what you want to spend it on.
Well,
So,
you're about to make more if you go to the trash bags.
yeah, which is good segue into the next conversation. So
Rebecca did all this work, so I'm just gonna let her talk to you.
Alright, you've got like a 10-slide PowerPoint, I'm gonna try to do it in 3.
And try doing 8, is that what you said?
Three slides.
Affordable housing component in this.
Yeah,
You're
no,
gonna- Can you just read whatever you put up on the screen, because I
It's
love
the
that.
abridged version. Alright,
it
so
is
this
10
is,
o'clock. So out.
this pretty much tells it all. So the blue columns represent our cost, total sanitation expenses from 14 to 19. So we've gone pretty much from like 850 up to like 922. There's a drop in 17. That's because in FY17 we decided to take the cost of manufacturing bags off the top of our revenue, and we took it out of the expense. So the expense goes down, revenue stays fairly level. When we initiated the program, we were making, if you look on the right side, the black line is the percentage of the total cost that's covered by bag fees. So each year on the right-hand side, if you read the percentage and you match it up with the black line, that's the percentage of our total budget that we are recouping through bag fees. So when we started the program, it was right around 45%. After your change in FY18, you're up to about 53%. So last year, you guys initiated a 15-cent per bag increase on the small bags and a 20-cent per bag increase on the large bags. It's a 75-cent per roll on the small and a $1 increase on the large. So now rolls are $4.50 for small, $8.50 for large. Generated about
Last year.
Yeah. You generate about an additional $70,000 making that change. It looks like we're gonna come close to meeting that number in FY18. So, looking ahead to 19, if you do decide that you wanna raise fees again, we are seeing a 3% cost increase to manufacture the bags. So it's gonna go from about $80,000 to to closer to like $85,000. We did negotiate a new tipping contract with new fees, which drastically reduces our tripping costs in FY19. So the sanitation budget for 19 is actually almost exactly level with 18. We're not seeing any significant increases in either trash hauling or tipping fees. If you want to raise rates to be consistent with the increase in manufacturing costs, you can do that. If you decide, our recommendation would be 5 cents per bag on the small bag. So it would go from $4.50 to $4.75 a roll, and 10 cents per bag on the large bag, 10 cents per bag on the large roll. So that would be $8.50 per roll to $9 per roll. If you made that change, you'd get about another additional $30,000 in revenue. So that would bring you to recouping about 56% of your sanitation budget. So you pick up an additional 3% there.
Total cost sanitation, transportation and tipping,
926,000.
so almost $1 million program.
Yeah.
So any which way you look at this, it is vastly cheaper for us to be negotiating the rates for people's homeowners sanitation as opposed for them to go to Harvey, Republic, whatever, and get their own pickup.
Oh yeah, they'd
Yeah.
pay $40 a month
So-
and not have recycling.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just from perspective.
I think it's 40.
What do you think it is?
It's 40 every 3 months. Anyway, that's what it is in Westboro.
For curbside pickup, it's 40 every 3 months.
That's what it is in Westboro.
With Tidy Town?
Yep.
It's not, well, I mean,
They
they
don't
could
have
have changed the
curbside?
rate. I mean, when I did this in 2008, they were
Oh.
35 bucks a
So
month.
I very quickly looked up 3 surrounding towns. Worcester has pay-as-you-throw, not super comparable because Worcester's a much larger community. Shrewsbury has pay-as-you-throw. West Boylston has pay-as-you-throw. Shrewsbury's cost, they have the same size bags, 15 gallons, 33 gallons, same number of bags in a roll. Their cost is what ours was in FY17 before you raised the rates. $3.75 for a small roll, $7.50 for a large roll. West Boylston, their costs are super low, so we should call them. $5 per roll of small bags, but it's 10 bags in a roll, so it's really $2.50. Yeah, and then $10 for 10 bags, large bags, which is really $5.
Yeah, what's their population though?
I don't know off the
They're
top
like
of my
a
head.
9,000.
I think they're like
Yeah,
half
so
of us.
I mean, it's gonna be
So
half.
that's-
Yeah,
that's
but those are
part of
wave
it.
top bags too. They're not drawstring bags. Which
Right,
is-
so the other piece of this is when we went to pay as you throw in 2009, the community really wanted the drawstring to close up the bags. Waste Zero is the only manufacturer that provides that aspect of a bag, which is why we've been sticking with them. And, they've been good, but, we do see pretty regular increases in the cost to manufacture bags.
So if you got rid of that, it'd be what? Just the 2 little
Wave
ear
top,
things?
yeah,
and
like-
then-
Yeah, it's a
Worcester
wave
just-
top.
Yeah.
It's hard.
just
You
tie
can't
it.
fit as much in there, which would be good for us because you'd use more bags. But it's not a good. It's not. No one would like that.
If you're gonna do that, you should keep that on the down low.
I like transparency. We do have a break weight percentage too in the bag.
All right.
When do we have to make this decision? This is on the warrant?
At the chair's
Sargon wants to
request
empty out his
last year,
basement
he
first.
wanted it to always kind of be a discussion on
Okay,
an
go to
annual
Stop
basis.
Shop, go buy some.
So we have it tonight. So there's no rush.
My
We just
perspective on
announced
this, if there's
Have
an
another kid with
increase in
diapers.
overhead, we plan to budget around a perceived amount of revenue that we're going to make off these type of things. And we need to adjust accordingly as that lever increase. If it costs more to make a bag, then we need to offset that cost. So,
Yeah.
Well, the 5 and 10 would offset that cost for the increased manufacturing of the bags,
And then some.
depending on how
I
many
mean,
sell.
yeah, that's true.
so
All these numbers
essentially,
are based on averages, like
we
average
take
bags. But
everybody's collective money in a budget, put it towards about $1 million in sanitation, which is to take everybody's trash and send it to Wheelbrae to recycle. All that stuff is included in sanitation. So much along the same lines as the service we provide for that Burger does, then it offsets that. But I don't think we can get away with raising $1 million in bags. So that's expensive bags.
No, I feel like we just raised them. Like,
It was a year ago.
it feels like
It's
just,
last
but it
July.
feels even sooner than that, so I don't know if I really, ready on
Before
an
last
annual
July,
basis?
when did we raise it?
It had been like
Never.
6 years or
Never.
something.
And I think that's what drove Bruce to push us to come back to you every year to consider it, so you don't have, if resin went up 30%, what are you gonna do? Whack people with the 30% at one time? No, you incrementally.
Yeah.
And
Just like with sewer fees, you incrementally get.
If the cost,
Unless your insurance- unless your health
seeing this
insurance
every
companies,
year, if the
then you
cost of
just
bags
fucking
went
drill
down
them
by
every year.
25%, I would ask the reduction of the cost of the bags by that particular piece too. So I'm just saying, we plan on this to do something for us, to provide an offset. We should plan on it accordingly.
Well, you know what we should do is.
If burgers accounts were cost less, then I would ask that we reduce the rates that we cost people for permits, if that's the nature of that particular.
Well, we should have a standard about, at a number, like, we recoup 53% of the sanitation cost. So we should have a number that we want to recoup every year. And regardless, so if we're at 53 and we recoup 53, then we're good. We don't have to raise anything. I mean, back in the day, what was it, 45 or whatever?
Yeah, we've been as low as like 41.
41. So, I mean, maybe we pick a number. I don't know how arbitrary the number is going to be, but if you could say
60%.
60%. You want to recoup 60% of that number, then let's keep the bags at that number. I mean, 53 to 56, what's the diff? I don't know in my head, but
3.
percent. So
I like that idea, that's great.
So I think we should pick a number.
Our general policy is to keep our offset for sanitation budget at 50%. Then
But that would make if we went up to 60, these fees would go up quite a bit.
Well, yeah.
But we've never been at 60 either.
No.
No. So I mean, we can survive at 53 or 50
And you have
or
to
whatever.
remember, the more people recycle, the less tipping costs we have. The more expensive the bags are, the incentive, we cut trash tonnage in half in 2009 because people recycled that much more because they had to buy bags. Because you could have curbside 8 bags maximum. A lot of houses had 5 or 6 bags. You drive around today, just anecdotally, there's 1.5 bags.
Yep.
So it's working because you're reducing the waste stream and reducing that cost on the other side. So you've raised enough money to offset that tipping fee, but not the transportation from Harvey for $560.
What are they all in the garage?
They don't have any trash.
You bought a pig.
Okay, so
A compost.
here it is. I've asked for it every year. And then you see the chart.
Yeah.
So I would like to offset for the cost of the bags. I'd like to keep this stable so we can bank on it as a revenue source.
But we're not keeping it stable. We're going up. We're recouping 56%.
No, I only want to recoup for the bags. So, but I like your idea of having it targeted so you can kind of push and pull so everybody knows that we're looking to offset 50% of our sanitation budget with these pay-as-you-throw bags.
No. Right now, we're recouping 53% with
Well,
the rates as they are. If we raise it, we're gonna recoup 56%.
I'm just telling you, I like the idea.
Oh, I'm
Not
sorry.
the
I thought you were
actual
saying.
number, the
Okay.
idea of what you're saying. Up to you guys.
I say we pick a number, we stick to it.
I am not prepared to raise bag fees at this time.
Yeah, that's.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay.
I'm not the only one.
year.
It's
I mean, but if next year that we only recoup, 49%, or like for me, I guess,
It'll be retrospective, right? I'll have to look back to see
Yeah.
what that percentage was.
All right.
I think 53 is the right number.
Yeah, I get it. I don't understand that the principle of this is the same exact principle as what we just raised the fees on. And what's worse so is now we're making less money on it because we can't cover the cost of the bags. So we're just depreciating the value of this particular program, whereas 30 minutes ago, you guys were willing to raise the rates on
Yeah.
everybody
Like an
building a house.
No, I look at it different though, Bruce.
With no
I do.
idea.
I look at it differently. I do. I
Okay.
know what you're saying, and you could compare it because I had the same thought as we were sitting here. But for me, it's different. This is something that everybody in town, unless you live in a condominium, right, has to pay. So it's almost like a tax. Where the building permits for new construction, the new people of town, if somebody's putting an addition on it, so kind of a one-time thing, service that we provide to make sure that it's built correctly and safely. So I look at it, to me, I look at it differently. This is something that costs every taxpayer in town. They have to go buy bags to get rid of their trash. Somebody that's putting an addition on the house or building a new house, that's a one-time thing, and that's something that they're opting to do. And it's part of the construction costs. So I look at it differently. But I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
All right, we'll bring it up again next year, or maybe not. I don't know. Thank you very much.
It's not mandatory people buy a bag. People can contract with Tidy Town and have it. So I know you know that. I just worry that people listening may think that they can go privately and pay that.
Yeah.
35, 48, whatever the number is a month.
Of course, then they'd be paying twice, because we're not clipping that piece out of their sanitation, the offset of what they're paying inside the budget already, so.
Yeah. I mean, we'll take businesses. If it was in the levy, people who don't use it would pay for it.
I mean, we could do that
Like
too.
condos. They would argue that all day.
It's already built in the levy, we could push this all on the people that say, hey, we're just gonna clip this sanitation budget, use it for something else. Along the same lines of maybe excise taxes and things we put on cars that's supposed to go to roads, they never got there, but, okay, cool. Thank you very much, Beck, I appreciate you putting that together for us. Okay, I have one bit of correspondence, and this is for the school committee joint meeting. So Nicole had sent something off to the chairman, Peter Carlson. They reviewed it at their meeting and gave us some dates that they could all be in attendance at. That's April 11th, 12th, and 26th, which would be next Wednesday, next Thursday, or the 26th, which is pushing this out just a little bit. So if everybody could check their calendars and if we can agree upon a date.
April 11th, 26th, and what was the other?
11th, 12th, and the 26th. And then there was a couple questions. I can read the correspondence, but I think it went to everybody. Does everybody get it?
No, I didn't get it.
Okay. So,
The 26th is bad for me. 11th and 12th are fine.
The 11th is my son's birthday, so I prefer to not. So, but the 12th works.
the 12th works for me as well. Anybody else for the 12th?
What's the latest date?
Yeah, I can do the 12th.
Okay. Brooke, Craig, you're all set with the
Sure,
12th?
yeah,
12th is
12th's
good. All right, so the 12th is good, and you had some other comments. Please also add in addition to the previous agenda items, in what areas would the BOS like to see the school committee improve its budgetary presentation or processes is my hope, which the BOS would consider this before the meeting to include substantive informed feedback. Lastly, they'll coordinate with Dr. Cummings, Mr. Gale, to make sure that all the relevant information is distributed. So, Nicole, would you send them back that the 12th? We'll organize it under ours to make sure we do all our notice and everything, and then we'll have it here.
Just, Mr. Chair, if I could, with the two articles that Dan was gonna speak about, that'll happen. You'll be signing that, so am I gonna just keep them on the annual town meeting as a placeholder? or-
I would like them to remain so. I don't, if we pass them over, now we have passed these over before, so it shouldn't really be
So you'll be signing something and you're getting information after the fact. That's okay with everybody?
it's okay with me.
All right. I just wanna make sure.
I'm not everybody though.
I'm fine.
Thank you. Yes, keep them on.
See, I'm everybody.
Good for you. Okay. All right, joint meeting with the Board of Health. So the Board of Health would like to meet with us and talk about a couple things. One is constructive input on the Alliance, and seeing that is a contract that's coming up that we'll be looking into again. They want to provide input, and they want to talk about after-hours response time, which we have done some work on, and we've kind of already gone through the effort. So, it is their chairman's request to come before the board, and if we want to, I just want to make sure that we have an agenda, so it's not just bringing them in to talk about something. So,
No, I think as we go into a contract, I think a lot of their complaints about the Alliance, they seem to come back to things that you know, they used to have, but they don't have now because it's not in the contract. So if they are in the process from, as we go through the process and they know what's in the contract, then they know what's in there and they're not expecting services that aren't in the contract. Like they sometimes expect services that they used to have that they don't have, you know.
So I guess, is it a worthwhile endeavor with what's coming up over the next month? When is the Health Alliance contract?
The 17th,
Of this month?
yes.
All right, so you'd be pressed for time to bring them in to have a joint meeting before we have to discuss that anyways, but we could do it on the 17th if need be.
And it expires June 30. I mean, you could do it in May. I just want to get work done. So if you want more lead time for everybody, I can.
So
I mean, joining the alliance, is that a administrator thing or a selectman thing to join?
Signing the contract for the IMA with the city of Worcester is you.
Okay. But the recommendation comes from you.
Oh, yeah.
And that's still your recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
How long do we think
Take
the
this
school
long,
committee,
and they do a good
joint
job.
meeting is gonna be? You think it'll be an hour? Think it'll be more?
I don't know, it depends
I think
on
we
how
should
much
set a
time
time
I
limit.
talk.
How much time you talk?
It's gonna be a while.
There is a
gonna be
lot
a
of
while.
things to talk about, and it'll probably be a while, because,
Well, because we could have them come in that night too, if we're gonna be here anyways.
yeah, I don't wanna mix
You know what
those
I
two
mean?
things. Because then we'd have to make them wait for
the
that
12th?
lengthy conversation we're gonna
Yeah.
have.
I mean, if we could do an hour each.
If we are gonna meet with them, I just want you guys to tell me what we're gonna talk about, because I wanna set an agenda. I don't want it to be free-for-all, and I don't wanna set the agenda myself, because everybody kinda has a role, and we've all been here.
Yeah,
Well,
like a
the
workshop. Well,
workshop
they
is
said
really
what they wanted. They wanna come in and talk about the alliance, right, and the upcoming contract. And one other thing, right? They wanna-
Yeah, the after hours thing, I just want to,
and the-
I don't think it's an issue because every month, and I have the letter that the director of the Health Alliance sends out, the first thing is the contact number. So when the chairman was called in the middle of the night, it was a mistake by dispatch, it had nothing to do with the Alliance. So they send
Not
out
on
the
these
number
particular things, no.
every month, I don't know if that's a weekly update or a monthly update, but we'll,
Has that been conveyed to them?
No, but a workshop
Yeah,
usually
and
is,
what's the-
is
what
more
do they think is the
free-for-all.
issue?
It's not just set an agenda
Yeah.
and talk what's on the agenda. That's why you have it on a
then
workshop.
I do not wanna do it that way. I want, if we're gonna bring them in, this is a board that we appoint, we've had some issues with them in the past over the Alliance. We've had a whole host of disagreements, and I'm not just, I don't want to bring that in and just air it out.
So why don't you have them, why don't they just drop like an email or something with the
Cause we've
top
already done
5
it.
complaints or
We've already
whatever?
aired it out.
What?
you're saying giving.
Or whatever,
give more detail?
they said they have constructive criticism. What are the criticisms?
April 10th, we're having
Do we
a
know
meeting.
what they
Is it a
are?
workshop or a regular meeting?
Regular meeting is you have to sign the warrant.
I mean,
Could they come in then?
We
could
have a lot of
ask
stuff
them.
for the 10th, Nicole?
Have they sent anything in writing, Tim? Tim, have you got any correspondence from their office about ongoing operational issues with the Alliance?
No, I put the chairs together, both.
That's right.
He's been working with Jay directly.
Okay.
And
Alright, because we had talked to them saying, hey, if you're having an issue, send us a note, you know what I mean, let us know what's going on.
Yeah,
Cause
that
the-
was
'cause the
the
Alliance
note. It was
reports,
about
you know,
getting the phone call at 3:00 in the morning
yeah,
that
but
they
I
shouldn't
mean,
have gotten. So but that seems to be a festering issue that I thought we resolved, but they keep bringing it up to
Yeah.
the chairman.
so it wasn't resolved. But you conveyed that it was a mistake.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So it would be a sole discussion about the Alliance and what they feel they need to get in addition to the services that are being provided, or what services they're not getting.
I mean, they could
that
send
want.
that in a correspondence.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's right, that's exactly what they can do. So,
But that's why, I mean, have them come in, we can put them on a regular agenda.
okay,
And just have Jay come in and just say, these are the, top 5 talking points or whatever he has for criticisms or whatever he
No,
wants to see in the contract. And then we could take them into, say, thank you, we'll take it into consideration and move on.
see, okay, it's our board that we appoint, I just don't feel that, I don't want them to come before us just to provide criticism of what we're doing, or our staff, that's all.
Was that what they're gonna do? How do we know that's what they're gonna do?
Cause that's what they've done in the past, haven't you been here for those?
Yeah, I haven't felt that they've come and criticized us, and I don't know.
Well, they criticize the Alliance, that's
Yeah,
for
they
sure.
criticize the
They've been
Alliance,
critical
yeah.
of them, and
Yeah.
And we've worked through a lot, to the Bruce's point, we've worked through do we have a workshop next Tuesday? We have a workshop?
Yeah, no, you have a meeting. It's not a workshop because you have work to do, like signing the warrant.
Okay.
17th. How about the 17th? We'll bring him in, we'll set a brief agenda and provide some substance.
Will you ratify the IMA that night as well, or not? Do you
Sure, we
want
can
me to
do that
put
too.
some- All right, I was figuring that if they're here, we'll kill it all at once.
Yep, all right.
All right.
Sounds good. 17th it is. We'll send something. Nicole, would you please send something to Mr. Gardner?
Picked the wrong month to have a baby.
So you're gonna have a meeting on the 3rd, the 10th, the 17th,
And the
24th,
12th.
I know.
and the 12th.
It's a busy month.
I want you to have a good send-off.
Can I approve minutes?
Yeah.
So Nicole, just the minutes you sent us in the email and the ones in the packet were like two different ones, I felt like. Like the ones for March 6th, it's like at the bottom, it says like approved by the planning board and,
Oh, it was just the exhibit list that had changed, I just haven't finished the exhibit list.
okay, so just it's the one that you had sent in the email on the 27th?
The substance of the minutes is exactly the same.
Okay, so then I motion to approve the minutes of March 6th and March
20th.
what?
20th,
20th,
2018.
2018.
I haven't had a chance to look at them, so I'm not voting. I didn't have a chance to read them, so. I'll just
Was that a second,
abstain.
right?
No, I did not.
Oh, second, sorry.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll just abstain. Okay. Because I didn't get a chance to look at them, so.
We'll just record that quickly.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.